Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite fantastic. The Seahawks won today, so today's a good day.
That is a good day. If that's your team, if you're a Rams fan, it's not a good day, but if you're a Seahawks fan, it's a great day. So before we get into this debate tonight, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you hope? First, I'd like to ask you, what is your debate topic? And what do you hope to achieve with this debate tonight? Is it just to be right? Is it to come to some sort of understanding with each other? Find areas of agreement? What is the ultimate goal of this debate for you? And I'll start with you, Alex.
Okay. My name is Alex Kirsch, and I am the host of the podcast Depth of Perspective, where the truth has no bias. I focus on all the social issues that occur, whether it's here in this country and abroad. Every so often, we'll have guests on. You'll hear me Tuesday nights at 8 p.m., but I'm starting back over in the new year. The topic I picked tonight was because I've paid attention to these panels, and it seems as though, Andrew seems like a very devout Christian man, which I completely respect, but I get the impression that he feels like America is a Christian nation. So I picked the topic stating that the United States is not a Christian nation. As a matter of fact, it's a nation made up of different religions. And what I hope to understand is understand his point of view, what helped him come to these conclusions. And I'm not necessarily here to prove anybody right or wrong, but I'm here just to state how the Constitution makes it clear that this is a nation of many different religions, but founded upon Christian principles, but not necessarily making it a Christian nation.
Thank you. Andrew, if you don't mind just discussing what your topic is and what you hope to achieve tonight.
I picked political correctness, and my strategy behind doing that is I've heard this gentleman, Alex, multiple times. He calls himself a moderate. Is that correct, Alex?
That's correct.
Okay, so I feel like with the topic of political correctness, you can draw out if a person is actually a moderate or if they're not a moderate, depending on where they land on the social issue of political correctness, which is why I picked that topic. The topic that he chose, I'm happy to debate also. As far as what I want to get out of the debate, I think it's a good idea for the different ideas to engage each other. Do I want to be right? I do, but only if I am right.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so tonight, the way I kind of plan this debate to go, I want everybody to get a chance to speak, have a good flow of conversation. I want to have, a rough time limit. It's not going to be strict, but, around 3 minutes per person. Start with an opening. This is how you feel on this topic. And then we'll let the other person have a rebuttal. This is, how I counter that argument or how I agree with you. And then I'll kind of pick your brains a little bit from there.
Okay.
And so with that, I believe we will start with Alex's topic, which is America, Christian nation. Go ahead, Alex.
So first things first, the First Amendment of the Constitution basically indicates that Congress shall make no laws respecting any one religion or prohibiting the practice thereof. Now, that's not verbatim right there, but that's in layman's terms right there. Essentially, what that means right there is that there is not the laws that are based upon this country are essentially based upon moral laws, not necessarily religious laws, because you can say how each of these laws you can find in the Christian Bible. Well, you can find these same kinds of laws throughout the entire world, whether they're Christian or not. Now, long story short, what it comes down to is there's been a huge debate as to whether there is a wall separating church and state. Now, people will state absolutely 100% correctly that there is no wall separation church and state because it does not state that in the Constitution. However, it does actually state in the U.S. Treaty with Tripoli of 1797, which Thomas Jefferson clarified upon this, the government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. He actually stated in the Treaty of Tripoli that there is a wall separating church and state. Now, the argument can be made as to whether this is actually to protect the church from the state or the state from the church. It can actually go both ways. But the argument, once again, is the United States a Christian nation? It is not. And the reason why that is because of the First Amendment itself. Because if this was a Christian nation, think about all the laws that are dictated within the Bible would actually be influenced throughout the entire country right there. You cannot have a country that is based strictly upon religious values, because we already see that in certain countries like in Africa and Uganda, where they actually utilize Christian laws and dictate Christian laws. And then you got places in the Middle East where they have Sharia law. That's exactly what you're going to be looking at when it comes down to having religious law dictate the laws of the land right there. So this is the reason why we have these laws to protect us not just from religious zealots, but also for the churches to be able to practice their religions freely in this country. It's a very, very simple concept to understand. Now, I know people will say, well, this is a Christian nation founded on Christian fundamentals. At no point in the Constitution does it say anything about God or we are a Christian nation whatsoever. Even John Adams clarified upon this. And I rest my case right there.
Thank you, Alex. Andrew, go ahead.
It'd be appropriate for me to ask a couple of clarifying questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to clarify, are you saying that the position of the right, or that my position is that this was founded specifically to be a nation only for Christians, or that this was founded as a nation by Christians?
I would say it was more a founding of people, escaping religious persecution.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you a question. I'm asking if you'll clarify for me.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that my position, or that the positions of people like me, are that this was a nation founded by Christians, or it was a nation founded only for Christians?
I wouldn't say it was a nation founded for Christians, no.
Okay, but so I'm confused about what the concept of this debate is supposed to be about then, because my viewpoint isn't that this was a nation that was founded specifically only for Christians to inhabit. Only that Christians founded this nation, and it was their value structure that built it.
Can I ask a question to both of you?
Go ahead.
Do you feel that the Constitution was written with Christian ideology in mind?
It absolutely was. Absolutely was.
How do you figure?
How do I figure that it was
Yes.
written with with Christian values in mind? Because Christians founded it.
That's not really answering the question, though.
Well, it is answering the question. Most of the moral concepts that are found in the Constitution are based around Christian value structures. But more importantly, there was Enlightenment structures that were around that also. But the foundation of the men who founded the document themselves, it's very important to note that their faith definitely guided them, and it was referenced multiple times by those people as being a guidestone for them. You got to remember, the founders that you would consider to be deists are 3, 4, 5 maybe. There was 75 members, 50. You know what I mean? And a lot of them were fundamentalist Christians, and there was hundreds of contributors who weren't founders who contributed to the document. Mm-hmm. So, and like you say things like, "Hey, the Constitution itself doesn't have the word God in it." Well, that's a funny position to take if what you say is, "Hey, the wall between church and state isn't stated in the Constitution either. It's stated in this Treaty of Tripoli, which it's a letter. He talks about it in a letter. It's not in a treaty. It's in a letter. Yeah. But it's funny that you reference that when in our Declaration of Independence it references a creator. So how come that doesn't get referenced as giving credence to the Christian viewpoint, whereas the wall between church and state does later? I don't understand that.
Because the Declaration of Independence is a declaration of independence from the British. That's what that means. It's not the law of the land. It's basically a declaration of war.
Neither is the letter to Tripoli. That's not the law of the land either.
But you have to remember something, though. Initially, after the First Amendment was put, after the Constitution was written, there was a question about a wall separating church and state. Thomas Jefferson implies that the separation of church and state is crystal clear in there, basically indicating that no law shall respect any one religion or practice the free speech or practice thereof.
I don't believe in that letter that you're referencing the context very well. Okay.
So Thomas Jefferson's wrong?
I didn't say Thomas Jefferson's wrong. Thomas Jefferson is a contributor to the Constitution. He's not the only architect. Okay. This was sold to all of the colonies of what later became the Union. Many of them were extremely devout. Okay, so just one line from Thomas Jefferson doesn't make a good argument that there's a wall separating church and state at all. It's just one line in one letter that's referenced, and you haven't even referenced it with context. So what's the context behind the letter?
Well, why don't you tell me?
No, I asked you a question. That's a pivot, and that's not a good way to
pivot.
You brought up the point, so tell me what the context is.
I brought up the point because it's a very solid point right there. Because the argument separating church and state, it's even stated like in the First Amendment that no law shall respect any one religion, and also will not prohibit the free exercise thereof. I mean, isn't that just implied from Thomas Jefferson indicating that there is a wall separating the two right there?
Hey, that's all well and good, but what's the context behind the letter so that we know you're not just cherry picking a line from it? What's the context? Well, I'm asking, are you going to answer what the context is, or aren't you?
Well, of course.
Gentlemen, let's not nitpick.
Well, I'm not nitpicking. I think it's important to know what the context is behind a letter that's being referenced to make his case. That seems fair. Are you pulling the letter up so you can read it now, or did you just arbitrarily pull it off Google?
I didn't arbitrarily pull it off Google.
Well, then what's the context for it?
You guys probably shouldn't be interrupt too much either. We're going to mute if there's a lot of interruptions.
So the context behind it is Thomas Jefferson wanted to make sure that there actually was this wall separating the difference between the state and the church, to protect the state from the church and the church from the state. That's the context that he was explaining that was behind it. That's why he wanted to make that 100% abundantly clear, because we had seen in the past in history where religion was essentially the law of the land all throughout Europe. That's what our founding fathers were trying to avoid right there. That's why he wanted to make sure that this was 100% understood across the board. It couldn't be much more crystal clear about that.
It's an absolute fabrication. It's one line that was written in a letter, and you claimed it was in a treaty. And it's not in a treaty, it's in a letter. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's a line in a letter. It's not in any treaty to anybody. Okay? And the explanation that you've given is still a non-explanation. What's the context that he wrote the letter into, the gentleman he wrote it to? Do you even know? I know you're pulling it up because you don't know what it is, do you?
I have to re-look it up again.
Well, right. So you arbitrarily cherry pick something to make your point, and it's super frustrating when people.
You haven't countered it with anything, though.
I did counter it. I said, why is it relevant to bring that up, this one cherry picked line, but I can't bring up a cherry picked line from the Declaration? You say it's because it's not the law of the land, but a letter to somebody in Tripoli is not the law of the land either.
But it's also
what I'm saying
tied into the Constitution. That's the difference.
The country was founded by devout Christian men. There's no two ways about that. That's not disputable. It's a historic fact. And if you think that their faith had no play in that, it's just absurd. Okay, it's absurd. Why would you think that? The church played a role in every place in the European world at the time. Okay, everywhere, not some places, everywhere that there was Europeans, the church played a heavy hand in how that society was run. That's inarguable. The fact that these people were devout Christians in most cases is not arguable. Okay, you can make an argument that some of them were deists, and that's a fair argument to make because they followed some of John Locke's teachings, and I would concede that that's true. I don't think it's a fair point for a second to bring up, oh, hey, this guy wrote this letter this one time. I don't even know what's in the letter because I never bothered to read it. But here's what the quote of it is that supports my thesis that there's supposed to be a wall between church and state. That's absurd, friend.
It's not absurd.
Okay.
I would like to just see what each of you thinks on who the Freemasons were and their role in the construction of our nation. And if you know anything about the Freemasons, what religious views they hold.
I know a lot about the Freemasons.
I actually don't know a whole lot about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I know a lot about the Freemasons. I was a Freemason for a long time, Master Mason. Only third degree, but third degree is a Master Mason. Master Mason is as much a Mason as a 33rd degree. Okay. There, to my knowledge, there was only 3 founders who were Freemasons. Okay, that was George Washington. Thomas Jefferson was never one. That's a common misperception.
Okay, I thought he was.
Okay. He was not. He was not a Freemason. He wasn't into that. Okay. The background of the Freemasons. So Chris knows. But anyway, what I'm saying to you is that there was only 3, to my knowledge. The one that's most obvious is Washington. Okay. But Jefferson never was a Freemason.
But in Freemasonry, is there religious ideologies, or is it separated? And what was their role?
It's not separated.
My understanding was that it's about living your best life separate of God.
Well, Chris Kono can tell you this right now, and so can the other gentleman who just said I'm a Freemason right now. Okay, you can't get a degree unless you literally concede that there is a divine architect of the universe, meaning that you have to at least concede that there is a God of some kind. Now, you can take your oath to the devil if you want to, okay, but you have to at least acknowledge that there is a higher authority than yourself. Just so you know.
Okay, I just so what I've been told, I'm not saying that it's necessarily true, but I've been told that the Freemasons had a lot to do with the construction of our country, and that they don't necessarily hold this Christian ideology, and that was kind of the foundation of the Constitution. I could be completely wrong.
That's highly subjective and conspiratorial, just so you know. The how much the Freemasons as a group at the time, they were much more powerful than they are now. Okay. But at the time, as a group, we have no idea how much their influence actually influenced the construction of the United States of America, considering how few of the founders were actually directly related to the Freemasons. Washington, of course, being the most famous of them.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interject that. I just wanted to see your thoughts on that.
But yeah, I couldn't tell you anything about Freemasons because, I don't want to pretend like I know anything about it. I mean, I know my friend Robert Brandt, Big Sarge, he's a Freemason. He'd know more about it than I would. So,
okay.
Well, I'm proud to say I'm not a Freemason anymore. So,
okay.
But right here, Grand Rapids Lodge number 34, I was a member for a long time.
So back to the topic at hand.
Yep.
I believe we stopped at
the founding of the nation.
The wall between Christianity and the Constitution. So if you guys can keep building on that, I apologize for interjecting.
No worries. So let me put it this way, okay? Let's say, for example, right? So we're saying that if this is founded in this nation upon Christians, right? That's what the argument is right now, right?
Yes.
Oh, the argument is that Christians founded the nation.
They founded the nation. Okay. They founded the nation. And you could say that parts of the Constitution could have been built on Christian principles, but does that mean that this is a Christian nation? No.
It fundamentally was when they founded it, yes.
But I'm talking about right now, though.
Yeah, but who cares about right now? We're talking about the founding.
I'm living in right now, though.
Okay, but we're talking about whether or not this was founded as a Christian nation or not. That's my understanding. But
my topic is the United States a Christian nation, though? That was my talking point. And then we started talking about the founding of this country. That
seems like a way to move the goalpost, but we'll just go with that.
We're not moving the goalpost. That was my topic of discussion.
Well, that's not what I was led to understand, but we'll go with that. Okay. Right now, currently, is the United States a Christian nation? It still is, yes.
How do you figure?
Because most people in the United States identify as Christians. That's how I figure. Okay.
So just because the majority of the country is made up of Christians, therefore it could be a Christian majority nation, but we're talking about that
would make it a Christian nation, because if you were a majority Muslim nation, we'd call you a Muslim nation. It's pretty easy.
But those are nations that are ruled essentially by the religion, essentially. Like, for example, countries like that are ruled by a theocracy right there, essentially, where religious people have a huge say as far, and then you got countries like in the Middle East.
Not all of them. In England, people still mostly identify as Christians too. They're not run as a theocracy. Most of the Western world's not run as a theocracy, and they identify as Christians.
Yes, but we're talking about they build their entire society. Their entire society is enveloped when it comes to religion. Like, for example, in the Middle East or places like Malaysia, or you got places like Indonesia. You can make the argument that those are because that they are the most densely populated nation when it comes to practicing Islam. But what I'm talking about, as far as they built the entire society under Islam, makes that a theocracy essentially right there. That's what I'm viewing essentially as a Christian nation right there. It could be a majority Christian nation, but sorry, I'm losing my train of thought right now. Sorry. What I'm talking about, though, is if you build an entire country, the laws of this land, right? Just because I've heard you make the comment that, oh shit, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Apologize.
Are the comments distracting you? Do you want me to not pull them up?
No, they're not distracting. I'm just
Okay.
distracting myself. That's all. So
Okay.
losing my train of thought. So my argument, though, is essentially that this nation could have been founded upon Christian principles. However, you could say that over the time period, you could say we've evolved since then, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so what? I mean, it's still a Christian nation. Most of the people here identify as Christians, so that would make the nation mostly Christian. So I don't know what else to really extrapolate on that. So our foundation on this has been mostly, I mean, high majority Christian. Okay, it's always been that way from our founding and before.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think that there should be like a mandated, like, what's it called? Do you think that we should, for example, have like things like the 10 Commandments within like schools or what's it called? Courthouses, stuff like that? Do you think that
I don't see a problem with having the 10 Commandments there? It's optional to follow them. That's what it meant by Congress shall make no law. Okay. That's not to say that you can't have a statue of Baphomet right next to it if you want to. You could. Okay. But
that's what I was going to ask next.
Ripping down the 10 Commandments is absurd. A lot of them are historical landmarks. It makes no sense. Nobody disagrees with the 10 Commandments. The only reason that they want to pull them down is because they hate the religious institution of Christianity.
Who hates them?
Mostly progressives. And it's in their ideology to tear down Christianity because there's rules, and progressives don't like rules. They like non-rules. They don't like things like me saying that men can only be men and women can only be women. That's a foundational rule. And they diametrically oppose that rule. They oppose it because it's real and it's reality. And inside of those confines of the rules of Christianity, progressives tend to flee from those rules, and they tend to hate the people who follow them because they think of them as judgy or preachy.
So basically, if you're going to take the small minority of people that actually do this, you're saying that they speak for the entire progressive outlet, essentially?
No, but the entire progressive outlet seems to want to speak for them.
Is it because maybe they get the most attention, probably?
Who? Transgenders get the most attention?
No, I'm just talking about progressives in general, though.
They get the most attention in what way?
Because they're the ones that are tearing. Because you made the statement that that all the progressives are trying to tear down these monuments. But again, I'm saying, isn't it possible that these people that are making up the small minority of doing this, that are getting the most attention, don't necessarily speak for everybody that's progressive? Because I know quite a bit of progressives that are actually.
Well, why don't the progressives oppose it then?
Well, they have.
Where have they opposed it? Because they're all down. All the 10 Commandments are down everywhere. Everywhere. Where have it been? Yeah, everywhere. Where has it been opposed? It's not been opposed. It's not opposed at the progressive level of government. It's not opposed at the local level. So where is it opposed? Where do progressives oppose this? They're always the ones championing it. I mean, ask the two progressives who are sitting right here. Ask them if they would champion tearing down the 10 Commandments. The answer is going to be yes. Well, so I don't know what you mean by opposition. Where's the opposition?
Well, we can ask them.
So I do want to ask a question that is kind of related to this.
Okay.
So we have one person here that believes that the United States is a country of many religions, and we have the other person here that believes that the United States is a Christian nation. Mm-hmm. That being said, should religion take place in the lawmaking process? Or should it be? Or should it remain separate? As
In what way?
The quote, separation of church and state. Should you use your religious ideologies to draft laws?
Certainly, people do it all the time. Doesn't seem to be particularly hurtful. One of the things that makes up a person is their religion. So using your religion as a guide stone to make law, when you're elected to make law, I don't see a problem with.
What if
That's
those
your
laws
job.
affect people? What
You
if
can't
those-
stay neutral if that's part of who you are. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, some of those laws, however, actually did affect certain people. Like, for example, members of the LGBT community, those actually did affect them because they were told that, they weren't exactly equal in the eyes of God, which is actually, I feel, is a very, divisive thing to do. So can you create laws based on religion? You can. That doesn't always make it such a good thing, however, because you have to take this into context like this. If you just start allowing like all laws start to come into place, like for example, all religious law to come into place, right? Let's say, for example, if you take an entire section, let's say, for example, Deer War, Michigan, and you turn that into an entire Sharia law zone, could you imagine like the outrage some people might have? And it could be possible for Christianity because there is a history of this country. Like, for example, the Salem witch trials where they burned them for being witches because they were going against God right there. Just because you are a religious person does not necessarily make you a more moral religion. However, you can draft laws based upon morals without the religion. It is possible.
All morals are derived from religion.
Not necessarily.
All
Not
morals are derived from religion. There's not any morality that's not derived from religion. It's where we get our concept of morality. Everything you, sir, right now think is moral came from Christianity, likely.
So why is it you don't see a bunch of atheists out there just, pillaging and destroying?
Because they take the value structures of what Christians put down and adopt it because it makes society good. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to live within the confines of what the rest of the mandates are. Like, you can only have sex with one woman who's your wife, for instance. They don't like that part of it, but they like the don't kill your neighbor part of it and the don't thieve and respect your parents part of it. So they like to pick and choose. But all of your morality was derived from the Bible. The people, your parents who taught you what morality was and their parents who taught them what morality was, it all came from Christianity, right directly from our founding, from the Church of England, and before that, from early Christians who taught it to them.
So what
all
about
morality is derived that way. That's why when we got here, the Aztecs were cutting people's hearts out, on top of pyramids. They didn't know what morality was as far as what Christian morality was.
I think that's
So their morals clearly weren't the same as what your morals are that were taken from Christianity.
I got to counter that. So essentially, running them down and essentially just butchering them and selling them into slavery is a Christian value that we need to uphold then?
Of course it was. When the Spanish got here, they saw a bunch of incestuous dog-eating heathens sacrificing people on top of pyramids so that the sun would rise the next day. If I got there, I would have put them to the sword too, and likely so would you, because they were human sacrificing fucking monsters, just so you know.
Well, yeah,
That's
but
what history tells us.
Well, Christianity isn't exactly like squeaky clean, though. That's my entire point. Before Christianity, there were laws and morals that were put into place as well. We're talking about like ancient Greece, or you want to talk about ancient Rome, or you want to talk about like certain small little colonies down in Africa and whatnot. Long before Christians came along, they had their own principles, they had their own morals and values. At the end of the day, no religion is actually, not exactly not stained from, their transgressions. And you got to remember, the Christians even believed that the United States was given to them like through manifest destiny. I mean, granted, that was years and years later after they initially landed at Plymouth Rock. But you can't just say, well, because we're Christians, therefore we've created morals, because there are other religions that share the same morals that Christians do.
I didn't say Christians created morals. I said Christians likely created your morals. I said that morality is derived from your religious beliefs. That's what I said. But not that Christianity invented morality.
But the same morals that you and I share, we can share those same morals and values with Muslims, Buddhists, and Catholics.
So what? That doesn't mean they didn't come from early Christian teachings, because they did.
Well, Judaism is before Christianity, so wouldn't you say
so that? What?
What do you mean, so what?
So what? And their morality also came from their religion, which was Judaism.
And
that's my point. That's why Muslims don't share the same morality that you have. and they throw gay people off of the top of buildings and burn them alive and kill people in horrid ways. Their morality, which is derived from their religion, is diametrically opposed to the value structure that you have, which was derived from yours.
But not all Muslims do that. That's my entire point, though. Why? Because they know it's wrong.
That's not the point. The point is where the morality originates from, and it originates from the religious belief. Always.
If we believed in everything that the Old Testament told us, we would be the exact same as the Middle East is right now.
Well, that's nice, but we don't, because we're Christians and not Jews. See how that works?
My point is that if you completely create a society based upon this, where if it was okay to do stuff like this based upon the Old Testament doing this to you, then you're basically creating a society that's similar to that. Therefore, we understand that these laws, like, for example, stuff that you see in Leviticus, right? Stuff like that we don't do because it's immoral in this society. That's why we don't do that anymore. So that's my whole entire point when it comes down to creating. We can cherry pick certain parts of laws from the Bible or certain laws from other religions and bring them over here. That's my whole entire point right there, though. But just because somebody isn't religious does not mean they don't have morals.
I didn't say that. I said that they get their morals from the religion.
Can I build on that a little bit?
They're able to take the morality from the religion and still use it. That's where the concepts for it came from, is my point. I'm not saying you're immoral if you're an atheist. Okay, what I'm saying is that the morality that you choose to follow is fundamentally Christian. That's my point.
Can I just ask a question? Are ethics and morals the same thing?
No.
You don't believe so? So,
no, you can do things that are unethical but are still moral. And you can do things that are ethical that are immoral.
But you don't believe that kind of leads to that train of thought of what is right, what is wrong. You don't. For me, I believe that you can have a certain, you can read philosophy, ethics, and you can kind of develop these morals and what's right, what's wrong based on those. And you don't necessarily have to be a religious person to know that.
Then show me a non-religious society that did.
I mean, a lot of our society isn't religious, and
I mean, as a whole society, where was the atheistic society that ever had morality that you can point to? It doesn't exist. It's a bunch of scientism nonsense. Okay?
Caleb Gonzalez.
What scientism nonsense mean? What scientism nonsense?
This belief structure that atheism in and of itself as a structure has at some point existed, and people have had some type of morality derived from it. What Justin's trying to say here is he's trying to say, without the belief in God and without the belief of religion, people will come up to morality all on their ownsies anyhow.
Isn't that why religion was created?
Well, right. But the problem is that I've got 10,000 years of history that say that there's no society that ever has. Therefore, the proof's in my corner. You have nothing. You have nothing you can show as evidence for that, because you have no society you can point to that's ever done it.
But society created religion.
Or religion created the society.
Wait a second. You said religion created this society right there?
Of course, sure. The religion has a direct causal effect on how a society operates and what its value structures are. Okay, when pagans were brought into Christianity and became Christians, they stopped acting like pagans.
They were forced to do it, though. That's the difference.
Not always they were forced. That's what missionaries were. Missionaries went out and they preached. That's what spreading the gospel was about.
And for those that didn't follow through, that they were burned at the stake, essentially.
Not all of them. Not all of them were burned at the stake, and it depends on where you were and what was going on.
But it did happen, though. At sometimes there were people that were forced into it, though. It's no different.
Sure, but their value structure still came from it. It's my point, right? How they came to it, you could have held them at gunpoint and forced the values on them that way. It doesn't matter as long as their grandkids learn what those values are, right? That's where the values came from. That's my point.
Well, that doesn't sound like a very effective way to do it. That just sounds like you want to create a religion based upon fear.
I'm just telling you that morality is derived from your religion. That's the only place that it can come from. Okay? Because there's no place you can point to in 10,000 years where their morality has not been derived from the gods they worship, the types of gods they worship, why they worship them, magic, etc., etc., etc. Okay? You can't point to one because they don't exist. Your value structure comes from Christianity. All of it. All of it. All the things you consider moral are likely Christian values. And your forefathers are the ones who handed them down to their sons all the way down to you. So yes, do I think fundamentally it is a Christian nation? Of course it is. Of course, and it always was intended to be. Okay, does that mean that only Christians can inhabit it? No. Or that we live under a theocracy? No. And those were never my points to begin with.
Okay, that's completely fair. That's what my understanding was initially, that you felt like this was essentially a Christian nation, therefore A equals E equals theocracy, essentially. So that's the only point that I really wanted to make and find out what you wanted to come across as. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, it's not a theocracy. It doesn't have to be a theocracy. Okay, theocratic thought can exist within the confines of the Constitution. It's fine. There's no problem with that. Okay, the problem comes in if you try to mold society as a whole using only your one. So for instance, to give some credence to your point, okay, there's like 10,000 different sects of Christianity. Who the hell knows how many there are?
Yeah.
Okay, so which one of them has total authority over what those values are within the theocracy? It doesn't work. Okay, but having those small individual sects have their own tiny little theocracies that are voluntary is just fine. Okay, and nobody's ever been against that. Religious persecution was a big deal to our founders. They didn't want anything to do with it. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they didn't envision this as primarily being a Christian nation, because they did. And we still are to this day.
I still say that even though Christians make up the majority, I still think of this country as a country that has an abundance of different religions where people can practice.
Yeah, sure.
Freely.
I agree, but it wasn't intended. It wasn't intended to be a place where there was ever a Christian minority, ever. It was not intended for that to happen.
Well, time will tell if that actually remains the same, though. We'll see, though. I mean, because that's one of the things that I've actually started to notice is that less and less people are actually attending. But that's a different talking point. Like, I'm seeing less people attend church nowadays, but that's a different talking point. So we'll see how that turns out in the next few years. So, but other than that, I pretty much had nothing else on this topic. So.
Andrew, are you good on this topic? Do you want to move to the next one?
Yeah, that's fine. You can move on to politically correct.
Okay. So Andrew picked politically correctness as his topic. Andrew, I'd like you to give a brief introduction on why you picked that topic. And then I'd like to go to Alex to have a rebuttal.
I mostly picked the topic because liberals ruined comedy. Okay? They ruined comedy. Comedy used to be funny. Okay? Eddie Murphy back in the 80s. Okay, that was funny shit. And comedy is now wrecked. And I hold progressives 100% responsible for that. Because comedy, what makes it so funny is being able to mock aspects of society that you find disgraceful or disgusting. And it's a safe place to do that in. Okay. The one of the primary reasons I picked this topic on top of that, okay, is because I wanted to draw out whether or not Alex was more of a progressive than he is a moderate. And so I can ask Alex a few questions that will determine if that's so. Can boys be girls and can girls be boys?
That's not for me to decide.
Okay, but can they, though? I'm not asking you to decide. I'm not asking you to be the decision maker. I'm asking you if it's possible.
Genetically, that like a boy is a boy and genetically a girl is a girl. However, they are making these advances in science where they can, if you want to say, change their gender right there. I don't really understand it 100%, but that's just because, I've never lived that life right there. However, I've seen people that have actually made the transition from male to female. They are biologically male, but they identify as female right there.
So do you want me to lie to them?
No. Not asking.
If one requests that I call them something that they're not, should I?
It'd be the respectful thing to do.
How is it respectful if I'm lying?
Because they're asking you, can you please address me as this? It's
right. They're also asking me something that's against my fundamental religious values, which is to lie. So how's that respectful to me?
Well, they don't know you're a Christian, though, do they?
But I know that they're a boy, though.
But they don't know you're a Christian, though. How are they supposed to know they're a Christian?
I know that they're a boy, and I know that they're asking me to call them a girl. So they're asking me to lie, regardless of whether or not I'm a Christian. That's what they're asking me to do. So why should I feed into that to feed PC culture, knowing that I'm lying to them?
Well, why should they feed into yours as well?
They don't have to. Okay. But there's never been any draft law that says that they have to. There is draft law in Canada that says that you have to. And
This isn't Canada, though.
But the progressives here are trying to follow suit with that, with hate speech laws, in order to force you to lie. So that's a big problem for me. It's a big problem for me in a free society to be forced to lie about your gender because it makes you feel goodsies.
There was a time, however, when it was perfectly acceptable to call black people derogatory words, but yet times have changed from that. That initially was a problem.
It's not derogatory. Wait, so you're saying that if you call a black person a racial epithet, it's like calling a transgender person their correct actual gender that they are?
What I'm saying is when it comes down to that, all right, if they identify, right, as a certain gender right there, okay, and if they ask you, could you please address me as this, and you choose not to, you're being disrespectful then. That's pretty simple, actually.
But they're asking you to lie.
They're not asking you to lie. They're just asking you to be respectful.
Tell them something that isn't true. They're asking you to lie.
Can I jump in here? I don't want to get off you guys. You know, there's legislation in other countries where you remember the meme that went around, it's ma'am. And remember the guy was at GameStop? Okay,
that guy's
will not. Okay, but we will not be allowed. And I'll get you the country. Right now I'm doing an update on my iPad, so I can't get it. There is legislation right now, and of course not America, but it is coming here, that we will not be allowed to intentionally misgender someone or even make trans jokes. Now that's a great gift. That's a funny joke. Okay, the dude was going to beat the other dude up, and you can say whatever, it's a man, whatever it is, it's still a guy. He's bigger and has broader shoulders, the X and the Y chromosomes. So again, so why are we going to take that away and try to prosecute people for doing something? I don't understand that. So I'm going to let you guys get back to it, but this politically correct shit is getting crazy. So I just wanted to interject.
I want to say something too.
Joke.
I do want to say something to Andrew about this, and then hopefully we can get back on the politically correctness topic. But Andrew, you say that you refer to somebody as a boy or a girl simply by the way they look. So if there's a boy who's born with some feminist properties and he looks like a woman, then you would call him girl.
No, I wouldn't.
How would you know? But how would you know?
Because it's such a stupid mischaracterization to say that we can't tell what gender who is who. I can tell who's a boy and who's a girl, and so can you. It's ridiculous to say otherwise. It's only in rare, extreme cases that you can't tell. Rare. And it's never happened to me once. And I've interacted with thousands upon thousands of people. You can't tell me honestly. You can't tell the difference between a boy and a girl.
Sometimes you can.
Yeah. Which ones do you know?
Sometimes you cannot tell.
You've met people in the street.
I got Todd the other night doing this.
Girl. You know, it's such a stupid talking point, and I don't believe it. I simply don't believe it. I think it's nonsense, and people are just straight up lying.
No,
they're just straight up lying.
Blair White's a great example. She's a content creator, and I honestly thought she was a girl at first. She's born a man, and now she identifies as a woman. But she acknowledges that she is a biological man.
But this is a person who spends hours and hours and hours making themselves up to be a woman. Okay? Yes. Yeah, transgenders that you generally run into, you can tell that they're transgenders. Come on, man. Let's not kid ourselves here. Why do we have to pretend and lie? The chick at Taco Bell who's a transgender, who's a dude with boobs, we know that it's a dude with boobs. Come on.
So
I mean, just come on. Just like, why not be real about it? Well, I'm saying,
why does that affect you though?
Well, it doesn't affect me, but
it sounds like
that's the broader point of political correctness, which is that, hey, that's a dude that has boobs. Okay. And that's the truth. That's a guy with tits. So
it's all about respect though.
What's that?
It's all about respect though. I mean, if they're not bothering you and if they're just saying, hey, could you address me as this and such? I mean, is it really that hard to do so?
Why would they ask me to address them as what if it was a matter of respect? That means I'm engaging with them, right? So if I'm engaging with you and you're asking me to call you something you're not, you're asking me to lie. Again, asking me to lie.
No, it's not. That's not being asked to lie. That's not even close.
If you're being asked to say something that's not true, you're being asked what?
You're not being asked to lie.
Okay, right. But you haven't told me how I'm not being asked to lie, because you keep saying you're being asked to tell them something that's not true, but it's not a lie because of respect. It was just like, what are you talking about, man? It doesn't even make sense on its face.
What about the legislation in schools now to where my daughter would have to go against a boy in a track and field match? There's literally, and again, we can cite this. This is not, again, we would be called.
I had a feeling I was going to get to that point. Yeah.
Well, that's you had a feeling we were going to get to that point that would be allowed. What about wrestling? Should my daughter have to wrestle a guy?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
I don't think so, because I remember when Joe Rogan.
He's a boy.
Well, hold on a second. Let me finish the talk point. So, Joe Rogan actually talked about that with I can't remember what the guy's name is, but they talked about that. He says the reason why that's a problem is because when they're born, like when boys tend to have a lot more testosterone than girls do, and depending on like what age they really start in, like some of them that start later on in life, they still hold a significant advantage over biological females. So that's an area that you really can't go into, because.
Oh, wait a second. Just to back you up. What do you mean? You don't have to do any type of hormone treatment at all to be considered a transgender. You can just put on a fucking wig and then go compete.
That's not how it works, though.
No, that's how it works. There was a guy who just broke records at a weightlifting competition. In order to show you how absurd it was, he just put on a wig and went in there and said he was a woman, and he crushed them all. And had to let him compete.
To me, that would be wrong, actually. But we're talking about a case where
what makes it wrong? Is it because he's lying about being a girl?
It's because he is lying. Because you just said he actually did it on purpose.
Because he's actually a boy, right?
But my point is he's not lived his entire life doing that. See, now you are cherry picking a talking point because you've only found one case right there where a guy actually competed to pretend to be a girl for one event just to prove a point. However, we're not talking about.
It's happened multiple times.
But you talked about one person, though.
That's because it was one example that was quick to bring up. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened multiple times, because it has. It has happened. There's also teenagers inside of high schools where they just are beginning their transition and they want to play on the opposite team. Okay. And with the transition, sometimes they take no hormones at all. And that's just one aspect of PC culture. Okay. We're not even talking about the entire aspect of PC culture. And we really should get into more of it, because PC culture is based around lies, because social justice warriors always lie. That's what they do. That's what social justice is. So let me ask you a question.
Go for it.
Because what I'm trying to determine is whether you're an actual moderate or if you're a progressive in sheep's clothing. Okay, so my question to you is, are people where they're at in life due to choices that they've made or due to circumstances that they're in?
I don't really understand your question.
Are people in the positions in life that they're in, be it poor or rich or somewhere in between, based on the choices that they've made, or based on how they were born?
That's a very vague question and a very broad question as well, because you can't just ask a question. It really depends on.
If it's a general question, then give me a general answer.
It really depends on where they're from. It really depends on where they grow up. It depends on what their parents do for a living. It really depends on their financial situation. So
I contend that almost everybody you meet in life, you'll find an exact and direct correlation between the choices that they've made in life and the exact financial position that they're in currently, almost every single time.
It really depends.
I've never found people to be victims of circumstances. I've found people to be victims of their own choices. And this is where the SJW deviation comes in, because they find that people are victimized, not based on their choices, but based on circumstances that happen to them. And I contend that successful people make the circumstances happen to them that they want.
So, and you said that you've not met anybody that's ever been a victim of circumstance.
No, I didn't say that. I've met people who have been victims of circumstance.
Okay.
Everybody to a degree can be a victim of some circumstance, but you can change the circumstance.
You can change the
circumstance. That's the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. Okay, that's the direct correlation. And people who say that they're in the position that they're in life due to circumstance, generally speaking, are lying. They're in the position that they're in life because of choices that they've made.
That's kind of a broad generalization, don't you think?
It is a broad generalization. I'm not going to lie, but that doesn't make it less true. Even though it's broad and even though it's general, it's still true.
Really quick, I wanted to ask you guys a question that Amanda said in the comments. She said, just to fix this problem, should we now have 3 teams? We have a male team, a female team, and a transgender team. I think it's a good point.
They won't go for it. You know why they won't go for it? Because they say that they're women and men, not that they're trans. Don't you get it yet? They don't say they don't want a transgender team. I bet you right now you could Google why transgender teams are a bad idea, and you'd get 100 transgenders saying why they are. Because the point of being a transgender to them is to be a woman. They want you to acknowledge that.
But would you be okay with that?
Not.
Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Go ahead. Have as many transgender teams as you want. But
I'm just trying to find the middle ground.
If that was the case from the very beginning, there would never be a problem, ever. But it's them forcing that forcing the lie that they're one or the other when they're not, that we have the big problem with. Okay, that's where the divide comes in.
Well, I'd like to ask this question too. What if we just got rid of male and female teams altogether and we just started doing by weight class?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's have females go in and wrestle with 100-pound men when they're 100 pounds and see how that works out for you.
There's still bone
density and muscle structure and everything else. Give me a break.
They already do that in some states, actually.
They do. And there's exceptional girls who can compete, but that's not the majority. Give me a break. It's not the majority.
I'd actually be all for that, actually, if they just had them all just go wrestle in the same class, because that would really
is there any political correct anything that you're against ever? Or do you just kind of toe the progressive line with political correctness in every subject?
Well, it really depends on what we're talking about, because your last talking point wasn't even real SJW talking point. You basically talk about, is everybody a victim of their own circumstance, or is everybody born like a certain way? Or
what I was talking about initially was transgenderism.
Well,
okay?
I'm talking about
what I made was another broader point on top of that point. Okay, but my initial point was on transgenders and you wanting me to lie to them in order to make them feel better about themselves.
Nobody's asking you to lie, man. No one's asking you to lie.
Just not tell the truth.
Oh, just ask you to show a little respect. That's it.
Oh, by telling them something that you say is not true.
You would address them as such, and then you're gonna go all about your day. It's
right.
But again,
if
you've never lied.
I don't get
Andrew,
this.
Have you ever lied before, Andrew?
Why can't you? Of course I have. Why can't you be?
What did
that
you do
doesn't
after you
mean it's
lied?
intentional.
What did you do after you lied?
Mean it's intentional, and I try my hardest never to intentionally lie ever. Okay, I try my hardest. Now, every human being on the planet, we're all fallible.
Yes.
Okay, so have I ever lied? Sure, I've lied. Everybody's lied.
Sure.
Okay, that doesn't mean you have to intentionally do so. So where we're at is what you're asking me to do is intentionally lie. I know you're asking me to intentionally lie because you have literally stated right here on this program that you know that a boy can't be a girl and a girl can't be a boy, at least at the scientific biological level. So you are indeed asking me to tell them, why don't you just admit you want me to lie to them? Because that's what you're asking me to do.
That's not what I'm doing.
Well, see, now you're lying.
So
that's why I always say SJWs always lie. See how that works?
No, you're just trying to twist the argument in your favor, and it's not going to work. I'm sorry.
I'm not twisting it.
I'm not going to cater to you.
I haven't explained how I'm not lying to him.
I'm not going to cater to you. Okay.
Well, how am I not lying to him? Just tell me how I'm not lying to him.
It's just asking for a little bit of respect. That's it.
Okay, but how is it not a lie?
Okay. How is it not lying?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to address somebody with a certain level of respect?
You're still not answering my fucking question. How is it not a lie?
It's not a lie. It's just showing a little bit of respect. Oh, I'm sorry. Should we just call it a little fib then? Is that going to make things okay, Andrew?
Sure. Well, at least I just want you to be honest and tell me that you want me to lie.
I just want you to show respect. That's it.
Okay, right. It's not by lying. And you can't tell me how it's not a lie, and you just keep pivoting and say it's respect. I get it. It's respect. I get it. It's respect. How is it not lying?
If you want to call it lying, you can call it lying.
Right, but you won't, even though that's what's true. And that's how I know, my friend, that you follow the SJW toe line and that you're not a real moderate, that you're more.
We've only had one subject so far. You can't base an entire.
Let's bring up the next subject. Let's go to abortion. Let's go to abortion. When is a child a person?
probably when it takes its first breath.
Right. Okay. So how's that different from the progressive line? How is that different from what progressives believe?
What do progressives believe?
Progressives believe that you should be able to have abortion at least up until the 6-month marker, but a lot of them believe all the way up until the baby is born. It's not a person.
Do you know why that is?
Yeah, of course I know why that is.
Why?
Because they want to have unfettered amounts of abortion without shame.
That's not true at all.
Of course it's true.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
You're using feelings right now.
Scientifically explain to me when a person's a person, then I'm all ears. I'll listen.
Okay, so what I'm trying to explain to you right now, okay, like over 90% of abortions take place in the first trimester, okay? Other abortions that take place, like in the third trimester, are abortions that are for medical necessity. We're talking about to the point to where the fetus is actually going to kill itself or the mother. That's where the majority of those late-term abortions come into play. Now, this is something that actually has to occur between the mother and the doctor right here. Women, as far as I know, don't just go out and get abortions willy-nilly at the third trimester, because by this point, they've already picked a name for the baby. They've already
no, it's because they can't by law. But anyway, go ahead.
My point is, though, is that they are only doing this because it is an absolute medical necessity right there. They're not just doing it willy-nilly.
That's what the law says.
No, that's not what I'm saying is this is between a woman and a doctor, but yet people are always saying, oh, they're just doing it just willy-nilly right there. No, I still have yet to see one case where a woman just went and willy-nilly had an abortion. It's probably like a very, very, very rare case, but I still have yet to see one. But that's when abortions actually do take place, is medical necessity. Now, as far as like these early 21-week trimesters or like 21-week abortions, stuff like that, those are all still within the first trimester right there. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what they do. That's still between them and their doctor right there.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
How's that different from the progressive line?
That's just going into context. That's just explaining the point of view right there.
Okay, got it. But how's that different from the progressive line? That's what you believe, right? You believe the exact same thing the progressives do. So we've established it. It's fine. You agree with the progressives on abortion. We can move on from abortion to the next politically correct issue and just see if we can find any of them that you don't agree with the progressives on.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move on to homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In
I
homosexuality,
thought we were talking about political correctness.
I'm guessing for Alex here that homosexuality and gay marriage, totally fine. There's no sacred, right? Got it. Okay. So I can't figure out then on any of the big social issues, transgenderism, homosexuality, abortion. I mean, we can move on to, I can't, where do you draw the line from progressives? Because you sure just seem to me, Alex, to just be a progressive.
So can I ask a question, Andrew?
Didn't you vote for Joe Biden?
Yeah, I voted for Joe Biden.
For Joe Biden.
Andrew.
You agree with the progressives on every social issue. It's bizarre to me. But
Andrew, is the top, I just want to make sure, are we talking about political correctness? Or are we talking about if Alex is a progressive or a moderate?
Conversations evolve. Yes. And I told you at the outset of this that why did I pick this topic again? You asked me and I gave you on the intro.
We did say that.
Okay, so I did say that. So I did say that part of my motivation was what?
To see where Alex is on the scale of
and what have I been able to determine?
So far, I don't want to get into that.
Right. You don't want to get into it, but
it's not my place.
To basically determine that the man's a progressive, which is
why
the
topic was political correctness, and he's managed to turn this into let's find out if Alex is a progressive. You've completely gone away from your entire talking point of political correctness. And to be fair,
hey, my motivation for picking the topic was what my motivation for picking the topic was. Okay. My motivation for picking the topic of political correctness wasn't to discuss political correctness. My motivation in picking the topic of political correctness was to determine whether or not you were a progressive.
So why didn't you just make that the topic then?
Well, who cares? I could have made it is Alex a progressive topic.
So weren't you just lying then about your initial talking?
No, because I was totally honest. I was totally honest in my introduction, wasn't I? Completely and totally honest that my motivation for picking the topic was what?
So you're being deceptive then?
No, it wasn't deception. If I'm totally honest and outright.
You're talking about political correctness, and then you turned it into finding out whether I was progressive or not. That's deceptive.
Sir, you'd have a great leg to stand on if at the very, very beginning of when the topic started, I hadn't said what? My primary motivation for picking this topic is what What was it again, Justin? Oh, to find out
He
whether or
did
not
say that when he was doing his
He did say
say
that. But
So
he did say
I'm
it,
not
but-
being deceptive then. Now we're still talking about political
So
correctness.
stick with political correctness then.
Okay, we'll stick with political correctness. So
Yes.
moving on. So moving on to the next thing, which is society and religion. Is there anything inside of society that you think in any way, shape, or form is shaped by religion that's good?
Okay, can you say it again? You got to cut out for a second.
Is there anything in American society that is shaped by modern Christian religion that you think is good?
Sure. There are some things.
What?
Like, for example, I believe that a lot of the what's it called, the food drives that they usually have with religions that they do, like churches that host those, are fantastic. I think they're great. Just the charitable aspect of it all, I think, is fantastic.
Yeah, but anybody can have a charity. I'm asking about things that directly correlate with the religion molding it. Religions don't mold charities; they just actively participate in them. So
Well,
I'm
it's
talking
part of
about
the
things
Bible.
that they mold.
Well, like to your point, though, when you talk about like the things that, these morals and values are derived from the Bible. So charity is a Christian value, is it not?
No. Well, yeah, charity
Yeah.
can be a Christian value, sure, but
You see a lot of these drives,
participation in charity isn't what Christians are molding people to do.
but it's an aspect that I do appreciate of it, though. which
Okay,
is-
sure. Anything else?
Well, sure, but I'd have to like think about it real quick. I mean, you can ask the questions of like what parts of religion that I actually agree with.
Okay, what parts of the Christian religion do you agree with?
I believe in treating people the way you want to be treated. I believe that, you need to honor your mother and your father. I do believe that they're, in a moral society, you shouldn't have to kill anybody, honestly, which those are all 10 commandment values right there. I do also believe that there is, I do believe in the sanctity, or like being faithful to your life partner, whether it's your wife, your husband, whatnot. I don't believe in adultery. I think I don't believe in it whatsoever.
Why
Like,
not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Because I just don't believe in it. I don't.
What makes it immoral?
I just think it's wrong to cheat on your spouse
Yeah, but why though?
because it's wrong.
Yeah, but why? Why is it
Because-
wrong?
Because you
What
made a
makes
promise.
what makes it wrong other
because,
than
you made, because
the religion pounding that it's wrong? What makes it wrong?
because you made a promise to your spouse that you're going to stay faithful to them. That's pretty crystal clear, actually.
So and you find that to be immoral.
I found that to be a very good moral,
Do
actually.
you think that people would come to that without religion?
Sure.
Sure. Okay. So like native societies, for instance, where they did wife swapping constantly, right? They would come to that minus religion.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. And you have any examples of any societies that ever
Not off the top of my head, actually.
Well, you never find them because they don't
Okay.
exist. So the
I'm
whole
sure.
point, I guess, going back is that all of these things that you consider to be moral structures are all derived from Christian faith. All of them, every single one, come from the moral foundations of Christendom. They don't come from anything else. And that's where all of your morality seems to be derived from. Now, when we're talking about the greater picture here, which is political correctness, it's interesting to me how progressives can pick and choose what they consider to be moral. They take aspects of Christianity and say things like, well, cheating on your spouse isn't moral. Well, I can also say that cutting off your dick isn't moral, right? What gives that validation, though?
Because it's their body. It has
What
nothing
gives
to
it
do with
validation that my opinion that them cutting off their dick is immoral versus them saying it is moral? Which one of us is valid? And how do you determine which one of us is valid?
It's your opinion. That's what it is.
All right. So are we just talking about your opinion then? Or are you saying your morals are your opinions?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. So what gives them value? What makes them valid?
What makes my opinions valid or my morals valid?
Yeah.
Probably because I was just like taught by my parents, treat people the way you want to be
Right.
treated and stuff like that.
So it all came down the line from
Mhm.
your parents,
Mhm.
right? Who were likely Christians, and it fed all the way down the line to you. And you take all of those values and you love all those values and you hold them dear to your heart, things like faithfulness and that are Christian values. And you'll take those aspects, but you reject the rest of it, right? And that's where we're at in culture as a whole.
Well,
That-
yeah, because
In culture as a whole, is people have rejected
Well-
half of
well-
the very value structure they claim to want to follow.
well, to be fair, everybody cherry picks from the Bible. You can't tell me that you follow the Bible to the letter.
Which parts? The New Testament or the Old Testament?
The whole thing.
Okay. Here's the thing. You're not supposed to follow the Old Testament. Okay.
So why do we follow the 10 Commandments?
Well, the 10 Commandments were brought up by you as should they be in school, not as should they be followed.
But there are also laws that actually are part of our society, aren't they?
No,
Like,
they're not laws that are part of our society.
Thou shalt not kill is not.
No, the 10 Commandments falls completely short on a lot of things that the New Testament addresses. The 10 Commandments doesn't talk about things like fraud, for instance. Does it say thou shalt not defraud thy neighbor? No, it doesn't. There's a lot of things that are addressed in the New Testament that aren't addressed in the Old Testament, that they turn to a different biblical book.
So get rid of the Old Testament then.
No, the Old Testament that they look at is Jewish law, okay? Jews also follow a separate book other than the Torah for their law, okay? That goes down through an entire tradition, an oral tradition that's been written down over many, many, many years. Okay, that's all Jewish law. New Testament is new law. It's a new covenant, okay? Am I a sinner? Do I fuck up all the time? Sure. That's also part of the New Testament, and I acknowledge that. That's true.
Okay, so what's your talking point then? Like that's
There's no talking point. There's no talking point. I'm just clarifying that your morality, at least according to you, does seem to be derived from your forefathers' religion. That's my only point. And I asked you what makes your particular value structure valid, and you said the only thing that makes it valid is your opinion. That's it. That's the only thing that gives it validation is your opinion.
Okay,
and is that not what you think?
No, you said you gave an opinion and I gave an opinion right there. However, what you're trying to do right now is you're trying to make it seem like your opinions, your morals, and your values are somehow justified, but mine are somehow not. Is that what you're trying to get at?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get you to recognize that the moral authority behind my value structure, okay, comes from cross-generational religion. And the thing that gives your value structure authority is nothing more than what you say is my opinion. That's what you say. It's my opinion. Morals are my opinion. Values don't come from anywhere. People can make the fucking shit up, in fact, and it's fine. It's cool. Right. Except that they don't. And that's not how societies operate, or else they would collapse in fucking 5 seconds. So no, they don't tend to do that. Okay. They tend, even if they're sacrificing people on top of the pyramid, okay, they're doing that as part of a hierarchy, okay, as part of a larger structure that keeps that.
Nobody does that anymore. Why? Because they know it's wrong.
What's that?
They don't do that anymore because they know that's morally wrong, actually.
No, they do it. There's more slavery in the world than there ever has been. There's still child sacrifice. There's still human sacrifice. Lots of people do it.
But they're not doing it for the religious reasons, though.
Of course they do it for religious reasons. Lots of cultures still sacrifice humanity for religious purposes.
Like what?
Like African cultures, for instance, still do that to this day.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I have a question from the comment section. There's one for each of you. Okay, so for Alex, I believe it was your buddy Robert Brandt. He had said, ask Alex, if a mother gets killed by a murderer with the child, should he get charged with 2 murders or 1?
Probably 2, because there's a different scenario right there. That's completely different.
Okay. Before I ask you to build on that, I want to get to Dave Moyer's comment. He said, someone please ask Andrew about the New Testament saying to love others as yourself, yet won't respect others, and saying he is somehow lying. So first we'll get to the first topic. Alex, why do you think that that's a different situation? And then we'll get to the second one from Dave.
Because first things first, if the woman is actually pregnant right there and her life is taken from her, there was like no justifiable cause like for her getting stabbed in the first place, or getting shot, or however you want to word it. However, if a woman goes to an abortion clinic right there, that's because she's explored her options right there. That's a completely different scenario right there. You really can't make the comparison of the two, because one of them is a person that is deliberately breaking the law and attacking her and killing her. And if she's pregnant, she's got a life inside of her. That's a different story. Now, when it comes down to an abortion, that's a completely different topic. And once again, I leave that to the woman and the doctor right there.
Well, I'm super confused though, Alex, because you said that life doesn't start till the baby takes its first breath.
It's officially a baby once it takes its first breath.
Oh, no, you said life doesn't start until it takes
You
its
asked me, when is
breath.
it officially a human?
No,
That's
I
what you
didn't. I asked you,
Yes,
when is a baby alive?
You asked me, when is the baby alive?
Oh, I asked you when it's alive. When is it alive?
That's when it's officially human, though.
That's not what I asked you. Why do you pivot like no other?
Not
I
pivoting.
asked you,
just don't
was
like
the
the
baby
answer I'm
alive?
giving.
You said, well, probably at its first breath. Those were your exact words. That was my question. My exact question was, when is a baby alive? You said at its first breath. And so what happens here? This gentleman makes a great point. He says, well, if it's at its first breath, why should both of them be charged as a murder? Okay, because the baby's not technically alive according to Alex's logic.
That's your argument. Okay.
Yeah, that's my. Well, it's not. The reason you're not arguing against it is because it's inarguable.
No, it's not inarguable. There's a significant
difference. When is it alive? When's the kid alive?
Huh?
When is the child alive?
When it's officially human is when it first.
Oh my God! See, look at this. I can't even have an honest conversation with you. You won't answer the questions I ask. When is it fucking alive, man? Not when is it officially a human?
Really
did I say when is it officially a human? Alex, when is it officially a human? Never came out of my mouth. When is the baby alive? It's not a loaded question. It's not a trick question. So when's it alive?
Essentially, when it first starts to take shape and starts becoming essentially an organism, is when it starts showing functionality within the one mother's womb, right there.
Okay, so when is that? 3 weeks? 2 weeks? When?
Well, I don't know. I haven't exactly a medical book right now in front of me, so.
You need a medical book to know when some.
It's I don't know when things start taking shape.
It's confounding to me. Listen to me.
I'm sure it's confounding to you.
This guy is literally saying to you, you can't have these two thoughts at the same time because they don't make sense. You can't say a baby's only alive when it takes its first breath. But if the mother is killed with the baby in the womb, you can charge that as a double murder. That doesn't make any sense because you're killing something that you consider not alive. That's why I want the date of when it's alive.
There's a difference between the two, though. That's the difference. There's a huge difference between the two, though, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying there's no difference between the two.
So what's your freaking problem then?
Whether there's a difference between the two. His point is, if you can't determine when the life starts, how can we determine when it's a murder or not?
How?
Yeah. How do you determine something's murdered if you yourself can't seem to determine whether or not it's even alive?
If the woman is pregnant, right, and she gets killed, and because obviously she's not asking for the baby to die, is she?
If it's not alive, how is it murder? Murder is taking a life. Okay, it's in the definition. You've taken the life. So when's the baby alive is a very objective question to ask. And you've done everything but answer that question. Everything you can possibly do except answer that question in order to keep the PC talking point, which is why I say all
I've given you the medical reason as to why a woman gets an abortion.
SJWs are liars. They never answer specific questions like that because then their entire morality tends to collapse. This guy asked you a great question. It was fantastic. And you did everything in your power not to answer it. Just saying.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to Dave Moyer's topic, and then Alex, you had another question from somebody else in the audience. But I'll get to it in a minute. So Dave had asked Andrew. He said, "Someone please ask Andrew about the New Testament saying to love others as yourself, yet won't respect others, and saying he is somehow lying."
So what's the question? So you can ask. There's another gal in this chat probably that I've had this conversation with before. I don't do the cherry picking Bible passage thing and then just get into a passage fight because what happens is nobody has context. Okay. And without context, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. So yeah, what does it say before that and after that? Right? Post the entire thing or post none of it. Otherwise, we're going to end up right back where we started with a letter to Tripoli being a wall between church and state constitutionally, right? So I'm not going to get into that unless he posts the entire thing in context. And
I guess I'll rephrase the question because I think I understand what Dave was getting at. I could be wrong. Dave, correct me if I am. I believe what he's saying is do unto others as you'd want people to do unto you, right?
And my answer
And if you do that,
post
and if you
it in
don't, are
context.
you not lying to yourself?
Yeah, but post it in context. Post it in context so we can actually see what is actually said. And then
Okay.
I'll speak to it. Which is fair. Which is exactly what I asked Alex to do.
I have to dig through the comments. So give me a minute. I'll come back to it. Before we do that, one last question for you, Alex, was from Eric Pone. He said, someone asked Alex if he supports the death penalty. I want to know if he's morally consistent.
So when it comes down to the death penalty, I do support the death penalty, but I also want to make sure that the correct person is executed. Because there's been cases where people have actually been proven to be innocent that were on death row for 20, 30 years, but because of like things like DNA weren't admitted into evidence until like 20, 30 years later, they were wrongfully executed. I do believe that, the death penalty is, I do think that, as long as the right person is punished for the crime, I do believe that it is a justifiable law as long as the right person is properly executed. That's my only stance on it, honestly. But that's another topic I'm going to talk about on my show eventually.
Okay.
So I'm more moderate on that position. I don't want to give the state any authority to kill anybody ever. But that's just me.
There was actually somebody that made brought up an interesting point about that, actually. Do you think that, this is for you, Andrew, do you think like in Iran, they actually have it to where only the family can grant mercy about that, or they can make the decision? Do you think that would be a good practice to have over here, where it gives the families,
No,
the power to do so?
I don't think it would be a good practice. Okay, especially when somebody loses somebody close to them, like maybe it's happened to all of us. I know it's happened to me. You're not in a good frame of mind to make decisions like that. No, the state itself should not issue capital punishment, because we've seen how many times they get it wrong. Okay, and one life is too many lives, at least in my opinion. Okay, now on the broader scale to that, what that gentleman was saying as far as capital punishment goes, okay, if society absolutely demands capital punishment, fine, I won't stand in their way. Okay, because I understand wanting to get your pound of flesh. I get that. Okay, but it's not very righteous, and it seems like we fuck it up a lot. So I don't support the death penalty at all. Now that's an actual moderate stance right there. So almost everything I have is mostly on the far right to extreme right side, according to you guys. But from your moderate standpoint, everything that's PC and progressive seems to be moderate, which is insane to me, because I haven't been able to distinguish any position you have, Alex, from that.
We've only got about 3 positions. I mean, talking about PC culture and SJW talking points is actually a very broad subject, actually. We've only found like the 3 or 4.
Well, then why won't you give me an example of one you fall in line with conservatives with, and then I'll shut my mouth?
Well, not necessarily. The one thing I don't believe in, like, for example, when you said at the very beginning, which I was going to agree with you on, is that comedians are getting shut down because they are making jokes that some people don't think are necessarily safe. I think that comedians should be left to be funny. Patrice O'Neill, the late great Patrice O'Neill, actually went on Fox News defending comedians Opie and Anthony because they made a joke about Condoleezza Rice. He said that he was very clear that comedians should just be left to be funny. And even if you don't like it, that's entirely your decision. You just change the channel and just find something else to listen to.
Is that only when they're on stage, though?
It really depends, honestly. Like, I feel like if you're in a position.
So that's the problem. So that's the problem, man. Right? Is like, is it only on stage? What if I'm trying to be funny when I call someone a fag? Is that okay?
Are you trying to be funny, or are you trying to be derogatory?
Let's say I'm trying to be funny.
Well, who's to say that you are trying to be funny? How do we know that you're not actually?
Well, see what I mean? So you don't really support comedians being funny. You support men going on stage who are clowns that you can laugh with, and that's okay. But it's not that you're trying to protect the speech. And that's the point. What made it so funny, what made comedy so funny once upon a time, was that the horrid social issues we should stay away from were shamed on stage. Okay?
It kind of builds into cancel culture too.
Yeah, if you go back and you watch Delirious with Eddie Murphy, you know how many times he said fag? You know how many times he said gay, queer, whatever?
Mhm.
And it was fucking hilarious.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, it was hilarious. But what was he doing? He was pointing out a section of society that wasn't so well thought of. And it was a point that a lot of people agreed with him on. And it's a way for people to shame. Do you know in the Soviet Union that was the only way that people could get the message across that was anti-communism was through comedy?
Mm-hmm.
It was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we've strayed away from that in a big way. So when I'm talking about not just cancel culture, but comedy, I'm not talking about just on the stage when people are going and paying the ticket. I'm talking about protecting a person's right to say what they want. And usually people tend to make judgments on society like South Park does through speech.
Well, South Park messes with everybody, so that's why they usually get away with it, because they mess with everybody. They don't just
get away. They haven't gotten away with it. They've been penalized like you can't believe.
And they're still
they make so much money, they pay it.
They're still successful though. They're still doing it. They're just killing it right now. South Park's doing a great job right now.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
they don't pick sides.
They don't pick sides. Here's where you're making the. Go ahead.
It's only because they don't care. Okay, most of the comedians from the 80s and 90s have sold out. Right? They can't get any work if they don't say, I'm so sorry I said the word faggot once. It's terrible. It's awful. Oh my God, what's going to happen now? Right? That's the society we're living in now. Is that the society you tend to support, or isn't it?
I don't think people should be canceled upon things that they might have said, like especially if they were saying it in jest, because the point of being a comedian is supposed to invoke some sort of an emotion, because, George Carlin was very good at that, especially with religious folk. He was very, very good about, talk about how religion is bullshit, right? Now, some people may not exactly find that funny, but it's actually a hilarious skit right there. However, he's dead, so he really can't apologize for that right now. So, kind of going to your talking point, real quick, when it comes to this talk about, people should be free to say whatever they want. You have to remember, though, just because you are free to say whatever you want does not necessarily mean that you are, free from consequences, not necessarily from the government, but from other people, right? Let's say, for example, if you see somebody burning an American flag, right, you can disagree with it all you want to, and they have every right to do it according to the Constitution. But that does not mean that somebody's not going to take exception and knock that person out. I mean, that's just the reality right now.
Is knocking the person out against the law?
Yeah.
Well, then you're not supposed to do it, right?
You're not supposed to do it. However, just because you can do it doesn't necessarily mean you should. As far as burning the flag, right? I mean, you can agree to that, right?
Well, sure. Of course. Yeah. What about flying the Confederate flag?
Well, flag of traitors, they don't belong on federal buildings, but private.
They weren't traitors. They were pardoned. They were pardoned by the United States government.
So?
Pardoned.
So
what crime are they guilty of?
You have to be guilty of something in order to get pardoned, though.
No, you don't. You don't have to be guilty of anything to get pardoned. You can be pre-pardoned for a crime. Happens all the time. Isn't that what your bitch with Trump is? Isn't that what the gripe from the left is right now with Trump? That he's pre-pardoning people?
He's well, you would talk about
wait, I thought you had to be guilty to get pardoned.
Andrew, Caleb made a good point. Weren't they traitors?
I just said there weren't traitors. They were pardoned. Okay,
that doesn't make them.
What happened was the South fought to the point where they only had a few thousand men left, and they were completely surrounded and cornered, and were still going to fight to the death. And Ulysses S. Grant met with Robert E. Lee, and they came to terms. And part of the terms was that they could leave the battlefield with honor. And when they did, the Union soldiers saluted Robert E. Lee for his bravery on the battlefield. What a traitor, I know. They saluted all of the soldiers leaving with him for their bravery on the battlefield. What a bunch of traitors, I know. Right? And they pardoned them. And let me tell you something else, okay, that maybe you didn't know. Jimmy Carter pardoned the president of the Confederacy.
Mm-hmm.
He pardoned the president of the Confederacy. Democrat Jimmy Carter did that.
Love Jimmy Carter.
So they're traitors? Is Jimmy Carter a traitor for pardoning traitors?
Of course not.
So it's okay to pardon a traitor, just not be one.
I just call them traitors because they fought against us in the Civil War.
Who's us? You weren't there.
Oh, you weren't there either, actually.
Well, right. So I don't call them traitors, do I?
Okay.
I wasn't there. Okay. But what I do know from historic value is that you can call a person who lost a war whatever you want, doesn't make it true. Okay. saying that you're flying a traitor's flag is ridiculous. And I just told you all the ways it was ridiculous. All of it, you can look up yourself.
So
anyway, going back to the talking point, should people be able to fly a Confederate flag on your personal property? I don't care. You can fly whatever flag you want to. I don't have a problem with it. As far as flying on federal buildings, absolutely not.
Why do you keep saying talking point? Going back to your talking point. I'm not making talking points. We're having a conversation. What talking point am I making?
No, your talking point as far as like you asked me, what do I think about the Confederate flag? And I was answering you.
Yeah, but generally talking points are something that are sent down from parties to affiliates. I don't think you speak about them. I'm curious. I'm just curious.
Okay.
Okay. So anyway, what I'm saying is, again, back to the Confederacy, there's a lot of cultural value that's there for people. Mm-hmm. Okay. They feel like within their heritage, their forefathers fought in that war. Not all of them fought on behalf of slavery. In fact, most of them didn't. That's another matter of historic fact.
Okay. So what were they fighting for? States' rights, right?
No, most of the Confederate soldiers were fighting because, like was famously said on the battlefield, when one young Confederate soldier was captured at 17, sir, you don't have any slaves. Why are you fighting? And he said, because you all are here. They call it the War of Northern Aggression because they feel like the Northerners were the ones who invaded the South, which is true. They did. That was after the initial shots were fired in the war, but the North did invade the South, and they were making a massive army called the Army of the Potomac in order to invade. And no, Southerners do know their history and they know their heritage. And I think Northerners don't know their history very well. And so they say this ridiculous shit like, oh, it's the traitor's flag, which makes no sense.
Andrew, I do have to interject here a little bit. So this is I just want to draw the parallel to something that didn't even happen as far back as the Civil War. I know you know the parallel I'm gonna make. It's Nazi Germany. In Germany, you are not allowed to fly a Nazi flag, and there's plenty of people who are their grandparents fought in that war with the Nazis, and they are ashamed of that moment in their history. They don't fly that banner as some sort of pride, that something they're proud of. They're ashamed of it.
So, yeah, but so what?
So the Nazis, in my opinion, it's something that could be taught there that we should learn from Germany.
Germany was conquered, okay, by the Allies and the Soviets, okay? And part of the propaganda that came with that was to erase National Socialism from the face of the earth. That was at Joseph Stalin's behest, okay? That's what he wanted, was National Socialism to be erased. So they started to institute those laws.
Stalin wanted socialism to be erased?
National Socialism.
Okay. Well, Nazi Germany was not a socialist country.
I didn't say it was. I said he wanted National Socialism erased. Listen to what I say, not what you hear. He wanted
nationalism erased.
He wanted National Socialism erased from the face of the earth. They did all kinds of propaganda in that country. Okay? Israel was established as a nation after that war. All right? And they also were a lobbying arm to make the anti-Nazi laws that were inside of Germany. Okay? They wanted a complete erasure of that. That's a totally different history in that European war than an American civil conflict versus a European war with the rest of the world. And it's an absurd comparison, which is why you shouldn't really make it.
It's not an absurd comparison. It's actually...
Where was the civil conflict in Germany between brother and brother? They went and liberated the Austrians. That's how the Austrians saw it. They called it the War of the Roses. They threw roses at their feet. And they liberated Austria.
You're making a false equivalence here. I'm talking about the symbology of Nazi Germany and the flag. Specifically the swastika and the rebel flag. They can easily...
They're not interchangeable. And
they are interchangeable.
Values, and they didn't
They're absolutely 100% interchangeable.
Okay, they're 100% interchangeable.
Absolutely.
So there was a massive conflict between Southern Germany and Northern Germany over slavery then?
It had nothing to do with the Civil War. They recognized the dark part of their history, something that they're ashamed of.
It's not a dark part of our history. It's just a part of our history.
No, it absolutely is.
What's dark about it?
We enslaved humans in our country. People.
But so what? The North was just as responsible for that as the South. And the thing is that you only make the Souths the South the culpable party, which is insane. There was all kinds of people in the North called Copperheads who were 100% against the war.
I'm not getting into the semantics here. I'm just
It's
simply
not
stating
semantics.
the fact that the rebel flag for a lot of people is equivalent to the Nazi flag.
Okay,
to
right.
Jews.
So it's feelings.
So
it's
for
feelings.
African Americans, they feel like the rebel flag is equivalent to the Nazi flag to Jews. And
Got
look
it.
what, all I'm
Not
saying,
all
look what
African
Germany did.
Americans.
They
Not all.
they teach about it in their history. They try to learn from their mistakes. They don't have any sense of pride in it.
Yeah, and don't speak for all African Americans.
First of all, there's a lot of Germans.
I said a lot of African Americans.
There's an entire neo-Nazi party in Germany, which has been gaining steam for 20 years, full of white nationalists who want a new socialist paradigm. So just because you outlaw the symbol, it doesn't eliminate the ideology that's behind it. The second thing is that they don't look at the original Nazis as being their heritage. What happened here is there's a civil conflict that people's actual forefathers fought in against other members of their own families in some cases. So they look at that civil conflict as a portion of the heritage of their very formation. It's a totally different paradigm that you're talking about.
It's not a different paradigm.
The only similarity that you can make is how it makes people feel. That's it.
So
Exactly. And I tell you, no, because I've told you this. I am from Philadelphia, so I don't rock the rebel flag. I don't give a fuck about it. But again, I'm also not so butthurt that I need people to take it down. So again, I won't rock it. But again, it's feelings. It's totally on feelings. So
And
again,
unfortunately, the ACLU agrees with you.
I have a question.
But I don't
with
agree
the
with the
ACLU or
ACLU.
Southern Poverty Law Center, because I can go back and I can show you 20 years ago rappers wearing rebel flags. Do I need to do that for you? Outkast and all these rap groups that actually wore rebel flags. Again,
What I'm
so
saying,
I guess
though, is that
I know what you're saying.
Brittany, go ahead.
Yeah, let me ask a question. So with the kneeling for the flag, where are
I'm
you
guessing
guys on
that Alex
then?
is totally for it. Now, let's hear from
I'm
Alex.
asking
Tell
you
us
more
why it's
so.
a good thing first.
Well, first things first. The only I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's entirely in their rights to do so because it's 2 minutes of silent protesting, and I'll take a silent protesting over a violent riot any day of the week. Honestly, I don't have to agree with it though, but you know.
What about it? Don't you agree with?
Well, just I feel like personally, I always stand for the national anthem. I always place my hand over my heart because I love this country very much. However, these gentlemen that were kneeling for the anthem were doing it because they felt like they've been getting stepped on and they felt like their plea has not been heard. And the only way for them to get attention was by doing the kneeling. I just think that, you know, for those 2 minutes, you know, I believe people should stand for the national anthem. They shouldn't be mandated to do so. However, they have every right to do so.
So are they disrespecting the flag by kneeling?
No.
Okay, well then you're not against it. So what's funny is you make these word salads that don't say anything when we can get to the heart of the issue in 5 seconds. You're all for it, and you don't think they're disrespecting the flag of their country by kneeling, right?
If that's the way you want to look at it.
Okay, well that's the way everyone's going to look at it. So
okay,
the thing
Andrew speaks for everybody then.
Well, no, I don't need to. You just spoke for yourself, and you made a word salad that said nothing. We've got to the heart of the issue.
Throwing these funny words around. That's fine, though. Go for it. What's your point?
We can get it. We can get these things figured out without word salads. You can just be concise. Concisely, are you against them kneeling because it's disrespectful to the flag or country? No. Okay, and that's exactly the progressive position.
I like to explain myself, though. Is that such a terrible thing to do?
No, it's not. But
what is your problem, Andrew?
When you explain yourself without making a point, when you explain yourself as a neutral party when you're not, it's dishonest.
Right. I forget. Andrew knows everything. Go, Andrew. What's your talking point?
So what I wanted to hear your response, Andrew.
My response to the kneeling of the flag. I think it's totally disingenuous.
On that?
And that he's a lying sack of shit, and he did it for recognition. And he started a movement for no particularly good reason because it has no stated goal that makes any sense.
So police brutality doesn't exist.
But no, my question is, Are you against it though?
Of course, I'm against it.
Are you one of the people that?
God, look, it's
But isn't
God.
that? I mean,
okay, a family and country with me. Okay,
but you're okay with the you want people to be okay with a Confederate flag that has a lot of really fucked up history.
I'm not asking you to take a pledge to it. Okay, I'm not asking you to kneel for it. I'm not asking you to do anything. But if you're living inside of a country where it's common to pledge your allegiance to a flag, okay, and you're instead kneel down to make a political statement that this isn't my country, then get the fuck out of it.
But isn't it
What
about
does the
what
flag represent?
represents?
The most unfettered freedom that Africans have ever had in the history of all of humankind?
Well, what's the First
I didn't say
Amendment?
you're not free to do it. You asked me if I disagreed with it.
Answer your question.
I didn't say you need to mandate it.
Right.
So the First Amendment gives them a right to do it. I'm not disputing that.
And to not have the government get involved.
And I didn't say you need to make a law for it. I just told you I personally don't agree with it.
But isn't
Trump's
now
not
the government?
The government is divided.
How is he not the government?
Between the Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court. What do you mean? He's not the government. He's not the government. What are you talking
He's
about?
Still the government.
That's not what you said. You said, isn't he the government?
And well, I mean, come on,
Okay,
you know what
so
I mean.
he's part of the
He's part of the government. So I have to.
Yeah.
And wasn't he out there on that crusade too? I mean,
Wasn't he a private citizen?
What was it he said?
No, he was president.
2000. It was
Who cares if he
2014 or 15 when he started. Again,
Who cares?
when Colin
No,
Kaepernick started this shit, you just had to pivot to Trump because, of course, we weren't talking about Trump enough.
Did he make a law saying you can't kneel?
Nope.
Okay, well then that's the end of it.
No, but
So
the point is,
when it comes down to the whole kneeling, initially what Colin Kaepernick was doing was sitting, but then he was asked by a former Green Beret, "Would you please kneel?" Because that actually shows a little bit more respect. And Colin Kaepernick, to his credit, actually showed and actually did what this gentleman asked, which I think
That sure was swell of him.
Huh?
That sure was swell of him.
Well, I mean, if it's a Green Beret, because like even the Green Beret even said is like, at first I was angry about it, but then I actually took the time to listen to it. I mean, you don't have to agree with the position right there, but you will have to agree. Would you rather have a peaceful protest or a violent riot?
And I didn't say that there was no right to do it.
But I'm asking a question.
What I said was that I disagreed with the fact that he's doing it at all.
Well, would you rather have a peaceful protest or a violent riot?
It was 2016, by the way.
It doesn't matter either way. I don't want a violent riot, to answer your question directly.
There you go.
But to answer it more directly than that, okay, there's no violent riot that's going to happen because people say the Pledge of Allegiance. You can't name a time that's happened. That's absurd on its face. So you're asking me for a false paradigm. Would you rather have this or would you rather have that? Well, can you prove to me that one would lead to the other, or can't you?
Well, what I'm trying to explain to you right now is that the reason why they were doing this is because obviously they're told, well, why can't you do this on your own time? Well, when they do this on their own time, they are still vilified and hated all the same. But it's not going to get as much attention as they do it on the national stage. That's the reason why he did it. Now, you can have your opinion about Colin Kaepernick. I'm not exactly his biggest fan whatsoever. However, he did it for a reason. He did it because he knew it was going to get attention, and people will say, oh, it's because he was benched anyway. Okay, fine. You can make that determination right there. But then other football players started doing it. More people started doing it. I only wish that the NFL was a little bit more consistent about allowing people to, pray, or people are allowed to, wear certain sneakers that say respect 9/11 or remember 9/11, which I feel like they really screwed that up. They weren't consistent in that regard. So
what's your point, man?
Well, I just made my point.
Well, what was it? Can you recap it? Because I don't know what it was.
My point is that he did a peaceful protest because he knows that if he does like on his own time, it's not going to get as much nationwide attention.
Everybody knows why he was doing the protest. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about why he was doing it. We're talking about fundamentally, do you agree with him doing it? Do you think it's a good thing he's doing it? Or do you not think it's a good thing he's doing it?
Sure.
Well, do you think it's a good thing he's doing it?
Yeah, I just said it.
Okay, well then that's all you need with that. right? We know what the history is behind it. We know what's going on with it, right? The question directly asked to you is, hey, man, okay, is it a good thing he's doing that? Yes, it's a good thing he's doing that. What did I say when this first started? Alex, tell us why it's a good thing he's doing that. And then you went on to qualify why it was. You have not yet deviated from a single progressive issue. And I don't think that you're going to, because I think you're a progressive.
Okay, you can think that. I mean,
Well,
I did.
do, because you have not yet demonstrated one position that's not progressive. Not yet. And
Okay.
you won't even give me a bone by saying, well, here's an issue I do have where I fall on that hard right side. Not one. There's no political neutrality with you.
I have a discussion topic from somebody in the audience. I think it's pretty good. He said, how do we solve the self-segregation in society?
Can't be
And
solved.
I asked him to build on that a little bit. And then he said, different races seem to be self-segregating again in schools and housing. How do we solve this?
It can't be solved. It can't be solved.
It can't be solved.
It's very common. It's called the lunchroom litmus test. You will see it in prison too. Okay.
So our society's in prison?
No, it's not a prison, but prisons can be representative of when you're at your core, how you might react when you're under extreme duress or stress. Same thing with schools. They're a good example of that. Okay. The Army, my understanding is that Alex was in the Army, right, Alex?
Yep.
Okay. So the Army also tends to do a lot of self-segregating. It happens all the time.
What?
Didn't say the Army segregated. I said the Army tends to do a lot of self-segregating, especially depending on where you're at.
You have to clarify on that.
So, for instance, in the 60s and 70s, even into the 80s and 90s, there were certain parts where black soldiers could go in Louisville, Kentucky, for instance, that white soldiers probably wouldn't go, right? The Army tends to self-segregate itself also to a degree, okay? Now, my broader point here is that, look, self-segregation happens because likes tend to attract likes. I hear this nonsense all the time that opposites attract. I have not seen that. Most of the time, people tend to gravitate towards people like themselves, right? Oftentimes, you say blacks share a unique culture, unique heritage, unique identity. Why wouldn't they gravitate towards each other then? Or whites towards whites, or Asians towards Asians? Self-segregation has happened when you give society unfettered freedom like we did when we stopped segregation, which was a good thing. Society then tended to self-segregate. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You'll find it everywhere that there's multiculturalism. It's just that you see it the most here in the United States because it's the most multicultural area in the entire world.
So Alex, you were in the Army?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. Do you guys tend to self-segregate at all? I thought it was, you guys are all brothers in arms.
We are. Like in basic training, you'd probably see that at first, but that's gotten rid of like really quickly. But kind of going to this talking point as far as like ending self-segregation, it all comes down to education and I'm not talking about like, forcing upon people. I'm just talking about like understanding that everybody, in this country has equal opportunity within this country. It doesn't always pan out, however. In order to end self-segregation, however, it's a very loaded question, honestly, because this is something that's not going to happen in the next 5-10 years. This is something that still is going to continue on for like the next possibly even 50 years. And that's pretty much has to do a lot with, the financial position that you're in and what part of the country you're actually in. Like, for example, you'll have one part of the country that's like, or like, let's say, for example, in Detroit, you'll have one section that's completely, predominantly like African-American or Hispanic, right? But then you'll have like the suburbs, like Grosse Pointe, which is predominantly, Caucasian or white, or however you want to word it. It really, those two worlds very rarely come together because they're in two completely different, like they have a different school system than the Grosse Pointe people, right? But in a society like we have, I think Andrew somewhat has a point that it's not going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, simply because, of how different we are based on class, actually, not just race, but based on class.
He says it's a loaded question. Yeah, we know it's a loaded question, but be concise when you're answering it. What's the answer to self-segregation? Do you have an answer to it or don't you?
Well, I can't just break it down to a concise question. I'm sorry. I'm not built like
Why
you.
not? It's a pretty straightforward question. You just don't want to take a position on it. You know what I mean? Just take a position on something, man. Don't be a fence sitter. Don't be milquetoast.
I'm not.
Do you have an answer to self-segregation or don't you? What I say
really.
is there's no answer to self-segregation. And then I give my opinion about it. What you say is word salad, word salad, word salad, no point. And then what? Nothing. One day, you say one day something's going to happen. What's going to happen?
I don't know. I can't see into the future.
I don't know.
So I want to
Lynn has
I want to kind of ask a question that has to kind of do with this that you hear a lot today, and it's identity politics. How do you guys feel about that? And is that kind of what's leading to this self-segregation, or is it something else that's going on? And I wouldn't even say, I would say that we're segregating based on our politics more than anything else.
I'm sure you would. That's a progressive talking line.
No, it's not. Our very first talk, Andrew, you said that we're at the point in our country that you believe that we should have a divorce.
That's not what he's talking about by self-segregation. He's talking about racially.
I know what he's talking about, but I'm saying there's more than one segregation that's going on within our society.
Yeah, but we're not self-segregating politically along the same lines as we do racially. What he's talking about is why is it that you tend to see most black people gravitate towards black people, most white people towards white people, most Hispanics towards Hispanics, right? You don't necessarily see most liberals gravitate towards liberals or most conservatives gravitate towards conservatives. A lot of people are totally apolitical. It's not the same thing, is what I'm saying.
I don't agree with you. And maybe it is a progressive talking point. I'm not sure, but I feel like a lot of people in our country are starting to move to certain areas within our country based on their political affiliation. I'm from Florida, and you move around Florida just based on, what your political affiliation.
Okay, you're right. That's true. I'm not disputing that that's correct. I'm saying that they're in totally different categories.
They are. Yes. Yeah, they are. So how do you feel about identity politics then?
I think it's probably the worst thing that's ever happened, but it's a very, very old tactic of dividing society. And it's not going to change anytime soon. Now, if we were all white people, maybe the dividing line would be brown eyes. If we were all black people, maybe the dividing line would be the rare exemption where you have lighter colored skin. It's hard to say what the divide would be, but be rest assured that politicians would try to divide you on some level based on your identity in order to maintain their power structure, because that is the primary way to maintain a power structure is by creating a victim class and creating what the victim class resents, which they would consider a master class. In this particular case, the master class has become whites and the victim class has become literally every other race globally. And that's what identity politics has turned into.
I think identity politics is, a real negative thing for our society, because nowadays, if you don't toe a certain line, you're essentially an outcast from there. Like, for example, if you don't follow every, ideology or principle that your party might believe, you're not a true Republican, you're not a true Democrat, what have you. And then, for example, there are some friends of mine actually that voted for Trump that are, biracial, whatnot, and they've been told they're not a true black person, which I think is wrong. I think that identity politics, by segregating everybody into these little groups because you happen to fit into this little hole right here, is disingenuous. I thought we were all allowed to have a difference of opinion regardless of where we come from. Now, I think that's the first step in for us to bettering our society, actually, is just understanding everybody has a different point of view right there. And you shouldn't have to corral people into a certain, area just because you disagree with them on one talking point right there, which I feel is one of the most disingenuous things we do right now in identity politics, essentially.
Let me ask you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, identity politics, it's incompatible with the cement that glues us all together as Americans. So again, it's kind of the reason why people are, like I said, self-segregating, and it only stresses what divides us. it's so divisive. Whether it's critical race theory, identity politics. So again, Justin, you and I have had this discussion many times, and you're literally telling white people they're evil because they're white. Now again, we can't. We have to acknowledge the history, but also we gotta move forward too.
That actually leads into my next question, which is, it seems to be another dividing topic between, it kind of goes along with this topic, another dividing line between the left and the right. And I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts on it. Institutional or systemic racism, is it an issue or isn't it?
Yeah, Alex, tell us why it's an issue.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. So honestly, I don't know if I really can give an answer on that, simply because, I know you think it's funny because, that's all you can do is laugh. But I think there are some situations where people are treated differently based upon their skin color, honestly. But sometimes in a situation like that, like I think sports announcer Stephen A. Smith actually said, it sometimes is about how you present yourself, though, at the same time. Some people, regardless of their skin color or their ethnic origins, if they don't present themselves in a proper way, they're probably going to, people are going to have perception's reality kind of deal, right? And I truly do think that there are some cases where people are essentially systemic outcasts, but it really depends on what happens. 9/11 is a good topic right there, actually, because after 9/11, how did everybody look at Muslims? They treated them all poorly. They started, not necessarily started rounding them up in internment camps like they did in World War II. But however, everybody had a different point of view as far as Muslims are concerned. They all considered them the enemy, all considered them, terrorists and stuff like that. So it really depends on the scenario. I think that there are times where systemic racism is very much an issue, but also there are times where people, how they present themselves, whether you're a white person, a black person, or Asian person, could actually affect how you're going to get a job or how people actually do perceive you, actually.
So not a loaded question, just up front. Is society in the United States systemically racist? Because that was what Justin's question was.
Do I think that the United States is systemically racist? From my point of view, as of right now, no. I just think there's pockets of racism throughout the country that are racist. That's something we can all agree upon.
So there we have one deviation from the norm, which is good. That's good progress, right? So and now at least I'm getting a feeling. So the United States isn't systemically racist. So you would be against things in the general sense, for instance, like what Todd brought up, which is critical race theory.
Well, I haven't really studied into critical race theory because I can't give an answer on that.
Okay, fair enough.
Justin knows my opinion is no. Lamar and I had a wonderful debate about this. If anybody else wants to have that debate down the road, I'm willing to prepare. But no, there, like Alex said, and I'll have to agree with them. There's racist people in America. So again, but the overall system is not. I have people that I'm friends with that think that there is. Again, I don't require anybody to pass a litmus test to be friends with me. They can feel how they want to feel, and I feel how I want to feel. So again, I say no. So, but Justin already knows that. So, what does everybody else think?
Actually, you guys, I think everybody knows my opinion on this already, so I won't get into it. Brittany, do you want to weigh in?
You know what? The systemic racism?
Yeah.
I think it's a little silly for a bunch of white people to be discussing this topic. I don't think any of us have ever had to deal with it, so I think this is more of a topic for somebody who has had to deal with it.
Why are you agreeing? Why are you agreeing, Alex? You just said this isn't a systemically racist country. Tell her why she's wrong for a white person to go ahead and weigh in on that.
Why should I tell her why she's wrong?
What do you mean? Because you have a position on this, and your position is that this isn't a systemically racist country. She's saying it is. Tell her why she's wrong.
You asked me for my opinion. I gave you my opinion.
And you said that she's incorrect. Why is she incorrect though?
And can I I just want to say something as a rebuttal to Brittany. So if we lived by that same school of thought during World War II, if you weren't a Jew, then you wouldn't be able to say that holding Jews in concentration camps is wrong, right? Because if I'm not a Jew, then I would have no right to say that. So I don't think you have to be a person of color to recognize the problem, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I think the point I was agreeing with Brittany on is that, the fact that none of us have ever actually been, treated a certain way because of our skin color. I think that's the point I was talking about, essentially agreeing with Ron, because I really can't comment on something like that, honestly.
But you just did. You just said you don't think there's systemic racism. That's direct commentary on that fact.
Okay.
Literally direct. It can't
and
be.
Then I also explained like there's certain times where actually it actually can be perceived that way. However, do I think there's systemic racism? I gave an opinion. I said no. But if somebody can prove to me wrong, then I'm willing to listen to that, actually. So,
did she prove you wrong?
Well, we haven't had a long talking point because that's a totally different issue. That's something that we could probably say for a different show right there, actually.
Oh, man.
Andrew,
just consistency. That's all I'm asking for. Yeah. Just a little consistency. But anyway, all right.
I'm willing to talking points. That's it. Is that such a crime?
It is. It is. It's intellectually dishonest to say something like there is no systemic racism in the United States. Somebody else says, yes, there is. And I ask you, well, what part of what she's talking about with systemic racism do you disagree with? And you go, well, milk toast fence sitter.
I didn't give an answer at all.
That's what you said. Milk toast fence sitter.
Toast fence sitter.
Milk toast fence sitter. That's what you said. Milk toast fence sitter.
That's not what I said, but thank you for putting words in my mouth, Andrew. Okay. I'm just saying, I say no, but I'm willing to listen to other people's talking points. And she gave her point of view, and I say, I can see where she comes from that point of view, but you seem to have a problem with that. I guess you just want everybody to sit in their own little window right here and have fun with their own little realities right there. You have to stick to one talking point right
I just want people, if they take a position, to defend the position intellectually with somebody who opposes it, rather than saying milk toast fence sitter.
No, you told me to tell Brittany she's wrong.
Well, tell her how. No, I didn't. I said,
yes, you said,
tell how she's wrong about systemic racism since you don't think it exists.
Motto. This is your problem right here, Andrew. If you don't like a certain answer, you attack people saying, you didn't say it like this right here.
I just want an answer, not a certain one. Just one is fine. Just
I gave an answer, but you didn't like that answer still.
Look, non-answers aren't answers. I'm at least direct. You know why these people get so mad at me? Because they at least know where the fuck I stand. They at least know, because I'm totally upfront and I'm totally honest about it. And I try to defend my actual positions. In this case, you said, and there's no systemic racism in this country.
But I'm willing to listen.
But you're willing to listen. So you listened to her opinion. And I said, well, hey, man, if she's wrong, she's saying there's systemic racism. How is she wrong? You don't think that there is. And you went, milquetoast fence sitter. That's what happened.
But she didn't say that. She didn't say that there's systemic racism. She said that she doesn't want to weigh in on it because she feels like
she feels that
way. A bunch of white people.
If you say white people have no say, you're saying there's systemic racism. You see how that works? It's very simple. It can't work any other way.
Well, systemic racism is essentially the argument saying that certain people are essentially, downtrodden within the society. That's what they mean by that. I don't think
you said.
Yeah,
if you say white people can't weigh in on a racial subject, okay, you're saying it's because they're systemically racist. It's that simple.
No, I didn't say we can't weigh in. I just said that I don't feel like I could weigh in because I haven't had personal experience. I mean, I feel like I see it, yeah, but I don't think it's really a topic for a bunch of white people to be arguing back and forth. I think it's something that people who've had personal experience with this should be weighing in on this topic.
And do they get to set policy that white people have to follow?
What do you think is going to be set that's going to affect you so badly?
Well, I'm asking you, do you think that they should be able to set policy white people have to follow, but white people can't have any say on the policy?
Well, how would white people not have say in the policy? I mean, our government is pretty hard to get anything passed.
You, by your own logic, just said that white people shouldn't be weighing in on this.
No. Our government is, with the way laws are passed, you're going to have a lot of people having a say in anything that gets done. So you're not going to have no say.
Oh, then white people should have a say. So go ahead and have your say.
Yeah, of course. No, of course.
Have your say.
when you're
Wait,
talking about
I feel
politics,
like I, as a white person, shouldn't have a say, but
No,
white people should have a say. I'm intellectually inconsistent.
Andrew,
That's
you're talking about
on.
Andrew, shut up. You're talking about policies. I'm talking about just forming my opinion on something on personal experience. These are two different things. I think people with personal experience should be the ones who have
Okay, fair
weigh
enough.
policy.
So is there institutional racism?
What do I think? Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah, of course. Okay, there we go. Easy peasy. So you're a white person who just gave your opinion on it.
Yes, I gave my opinion, but I mean, I'm not going to get into detail because I've never had to deal with it. But I mean, you see this happening when two people get charged for the same crime, and a white person gets far less of a sentence than a black person.
Okay, I made my point. You can move on.
Okay. What's next, guys?
I think that was pretty much it, wasn't it? Or was there anything else that we want to talk about?
Oh, we got another hour to kill.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
All right.
The debate part, we're just having a discussion. Panel
Yeah, it's
discussion.
just a panel discussion. now.
Okay, gotcha,
Debate,
gotcha.
Yeah, we're just hanging out, taking mostly questions from the audience.
Okay.
So Todd and Brittany have been kind of quiet. I wanted to see how they kind of felt about the debate and if they have any questions after.
Nah, I'm just gonna make some statements that I can just kind of verifying what we went on. So we talked about politically correctness, right? There's a chick named Carolyn Farrow over in Britain who is actually maybe doing some jail sentence because she wrote things online about sex, gender, and a person who changed gender. So again, this was in Surrey. I understand it's not America, but I think it's coming to America very soon. So again, no legislation has been passed yet, but I rapidly see it coming here. As for when birth starts, I mean, it's funny that the Party of Science refuses to acknowledge science. I have a whole wide range of science, I guess you can call them journals, articles, that life begins at fertilization. Okay, so I don't even know how we can debate that. Again, that's why we would charge the person who killed a pregnant person with 2 murders, because there's 2 lives there. So and as for the religion thing, we're literally mimicking what Chinese communists, the CCP, is repeating about Christianity. I mean, I don't hear anybody shitting on Muslims. We only shit on Christians in here, and it's just funny to me that
John had a good question there. Not to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I don't look at the comments. So
take a look
tell
at
me
John's
if you see one.
A few questions, you guys. We
do the questions. Yeah, do them again. So those are my 3 points. I just wanted to talk on them real quick. So I believe, that the reason Christianity is being shit on is a CCP talking point. Life begins at fertilization, and politically correct police are going to be coming to America. Anyway, hey, what was the comment? I don't read them. I don't have my glasses on.
well, I guess this is for Alex.
Yeah, I guess so. So the question is, can I ask why a murdered fetus is an act of violence and is a life, but when it's voluntary abortion, it is not a life? I think it's all about context as far as like the what's it called? For example, one can assume, but I'm not going to assume too much, but like the woman that's pregnant is probably going to carry that baby to term, and her life was already taken from her. But when the woman goes to an abortion clinic, that's a completely different. That's a medical procedure right there, whether we agree with it or not, kind of deal. So I think it's all about context, essentially. That's just my opinion about it.
Yeah, and I'll give you that. I'm just saying, like, the science, and I literally have a bunch of science journals here that says an embryo, the developing organism from the time of fertilization until significant differentiation has occurred, when the organism becomes known as a fetus. So again, there's science that's saying that, but again, because we get told that we don't believe in science. So again, and then when I hear the Party of Science not believing in science, I just like to throw it out there. But again, I am anti-abortion. But again, the libertarian says if a person's going to do it, they're going to do it anyway. But I am 100% anti-abortion. So
no, that's completely fair.
But I don't want anybody having them because it's murder. And if we get into Margaret Sanger, again, if anybody ever wants to come on, the original eugenist who started Planned Parenthood with the goal of eradicating black folks. It's just funny that, we keep putting these abortion clinics in the black community. It's kind of why we stay at 13% too. So
do you have any statistics to back that up, or is it just a?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I
sure.
do, and I'll send them to you. But it's absolutely 100,000% true that blacks have stayed at that demographic level,
and that's why Latinos are now,
to abortion.
Right, and why Latinos are now the number one minority group in America. So, again, that's just I can get it to you though. You know me, I'll sauce it. But anyway, go back to the.
It just seems like I haven't. Actually, I don't want to even open up the can of worms. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can, man. Again, like I said, open them. I open barrels of worms, bro. I open barrels of worms. I don't open cans. So again, I stayed quiet. Again, I didn't try to interject. I enjoyed the debate, but those are just my talking points. So again,
okay. I think Annette has a good question.
Go ahead.
She says, so Todd, and I think this, Andrew actually already addressed it. Todd, if you're anti-abortion, how do you feel about the death penalty? Is it also again to you?
No, and again, we had this conversation before too. I don't think that I don't think we should, especially with all the problems that we've had with the death penalty, right? How many innocent people, right? I mean, there was that guy Brandon Brown, right? Which Kamala Harris actually hid the evidence on. So again, it's just funny. So again, but no. So I've kind of changed. I used to be pro death penalty, but I think it was kind of like trying to, when you try to act tough when you're in the 30s, and then when you get into the 40s, you understand that it's still a loss of life. So then to be pro-life, right? You need to honor life. So like I said, so I've changed on that position. Not recently, not since I've known you guys, but sure, like I said, when I was 35, I probably was pro death penalty. I've always been a weird bird anyway. With my gun, I've always been pro guns. So even though I was a Democrat, but I was just told I was a Democrat. Again, I was born into it, and then I woke up and started reading. So,
which, speaking of guns, Alex wanted to take me to task on guns.
Yes.
So take me to task on guns, man. Tell me about why an AR-15 is going to be superior to a shotgun in killing multiple people in a tight, crowded room. I'm all ears.
Well, it's all there's feedback.
I'll mute my mic.
Okay. So I remember we had this discussion actually a while back. When it comes down to with an AR-15 and a shotgun, right? Well, first off, we'd have to talk about what kind of shotgun we're using. But for example, anybody that has enough training with an AR-15, right, is going to be able to grab another 30-round magazine after it's already been expended and slap another magazine in there, and then they're ready to rock and roll right there. Shotgun, it's not quite as simple as that, however. Most of the mass shootings that have actually taken place with AR-15s or some sort of a semi-automatic rifle, or some like Las Vegas guy had a bump stock and stuff like that. Most of the other mass shootings, I think the second one is handguns, and number 3 is shotguns right there. I think that was one of the topics that you and I were talking about right there. And I was just talking about how you would kill more people with an AR-15 than you would with a shotgun. The shotgun, granted, does have more stopping power. It actually has more power behind it. But you also got to take into consideration your load time is going to be significantly longer than with an AR-15.
Why is your load time going to be longer with a shotgun?
Well, it depends on how you have your shotguns.
Why do you have to reload it at all? Why can't you?
What about a drum?
Next one.
What's that?
Why can't you just drop it on the ground and grab the next one off your back?
Well, how many shotguns?
Or a 20-round drum.
How many do you need? 6, 5, 4? How many do you need? If you take a Mossberg with an extended magazine tube on it that has 8 rounds of buckshot in it, and you carry 4 of them in with you, why do you even need to reload at all?
But you're going to run out eventually, aren't you? You can get more people.
You're going to run out with an AR eventually.
Yeah, but you're going to get more people with an AR-15, though. It's actually been proven.
How do you figure that that's true? Buckshot has fighter spread powder, has more stopping power.
An AR-15
in close quarters. Yeah, that's a 22 on steroids. Yeah. 22 on steroids. Now, you were trained in the Army with an AR-15 to shoot from the prone position at 500 meters, and then 250 meters, and then 100 meters, and then 50 meters.
Yep.
Right? The precision accuracy of that rifle is designed for range, and it applies to the lowest common denominator, which is the female soldier, which is one of the primary reasons we went from the XM15A1 was so that it could apply to the lowest common denominator. Do you know what we went to the AR-15 from?
From the M14.
What?
The M14.
from the M14. And are you arguing that the M14 is a less effective weapon than the AR-15?
Oh, it's got more stopping power than AR-15.
Of course. So if somebody went in with an M14, could they do more damage than with an AR-15?
Of course they could.
Of course they could.
It's all about
so
loading.
so you've already granted that there's other weapons that are more effective for the job in close quarters killing.
But each and every mass shooting that's taken place, has it been with a shotgun or has it been with an AR-15?
It has been with shotguns. In the Aurora Theater, he used both a shotgun and an AR-15. In fact,
no. The most mass shootings take place is with AR. AR.
Well, that's not what you asked. You said, "Is it done with this or is it done with that?" It's done with both. But that aside, what my overarching point to you is that just because they use one tool for the job, you've just now admitted that there's other more effective tools for the job.
But we're talking about
that was my. But you got to remember, that was my overriding point. Was that there are other more effective tools for the job. And just because somebody's using one type doesn't mean that that's the most effective type, and that tactics will switch based on the gun. That's my point.
I don't think you made that talking point, but okay. I mean,
that's the point. That's my entire ask Justin here for the debate. That was my point, is that the tactics will switch if you limit the weapons. Now, I can still argue with you easily that a shotgun in close quarters is far more effective than an AR-15.
But I'm talking about reload time, though. It's significantly
yes,
different.
Reload time does slide you down if you're using a mag tube. If you're using a magazine-fed shotgun, not so much. Still a little bit bulkier, but you're going to get a lot more stopping power out of it. Okay? Mag tube shotgun.
20-round drums now.
A lot of times, mass shooters don't even bother reloading. What do they need to reload for? They just grab the next weapon. My overarching point for that entire debate was that tactics change based on the weapons that are available. If you have already admitted that there's a superior weapon that's already available to the general public, which you did, the Army moved away from it to the next one to apply to the lowest common denominator, then you have to agree with me that the tactics are going to agree with the weaponry used.
But when it comes down to the tactics of using, like, for example, if you got Adam Lanza, what weapon did he use?
Adam Lanza used an AR.
He used an AR. Why did he use a shotgun?
And what weapon did the Aurora, Colorado shooter use? He used a Mossberg.
Yes, but how many people?
He shot multiple people with the Mossberg first. At many of the Moss shootings, shotguns have been used. Just because it's the most popular weapon doesn't mean it's the best, is my point.
But how many people died in Aurora compared to how many people died at, what was it called? Up in Connecticut.
Where up in Connecticut?
The shooting up there with Adam Lanza.
How many people died in Aurora?
Yes.
More people died in Aurora, I believe, at the theater than died in Connecticut. I could be wrong.
No, Sandy Hook was more.
Thank you, John.
Okay, yeah, fine. Sandy Hook was more than Aurora.
Then I concede the point right away.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really matter. It's a meritless distinction. He was in there shooting at what, 3-4-year-olds? Okay, not at a panic movie theater where people were running out as fast as they could or ducking for cover and were singularly aware adults.
On a closely confined area that he came into the exit right there.
Yeah, but my point is you can't say that if Adam Lanza hadn't used a shotgun on the 4-year-olds that it wouldn't have been a more effective weapon, because it would have been. Well, it would have taken out 6 4-year-olds at a time versus 1 at a time.
It's possible, but we'll never know because he used AR-15.
Well, we don't need to know because we do have other examples, and we also have ballistics, and we have all the things about the weapons that we can look at. But that aside, even if I were to concede to you the point that the AR-15 in close quarters is a more effective weapon for destruction, you have already said that there's other weapons that would be better served for that type of destruction. And so limiting the one type of weapon is not necessarily going to facilitate a stop just because it happens to be the most popular one for the intended crime.
Now, if you're going to use a shotgun, essentially, like, for example, for like breaching procedures, yes, I would concede to bring in a shotgun. However, if you're trying to shoot at your direct target, you're going to always want to use an AR-15 or like what spec ops use.
And why is a shotgun better in a breaching procedure?
Because it blows the hinges off the doors.
Well, you don't just shoot. You don't have to use the shotgun to blow the locks off, but still the first guy in usually has it. How come?
Not usually. Not usually.
Yeah, usually.
No, usually.
I'm not talking militarily, but special weapons and tactics, generally speaking, if the goal is to kill a barricaded suspect inside and there's going to be no collateral damage, meaning there's no hostages, usually a shotgun leads. And why wouldn't it lead? Of course it would lead, because in a confined space, it has the most effective killing and stopping power of any other weapon on the market available, period.
Maybe you're talking from like a civilian point of view, but I would know about the civilian point of view. But as far as the military point of view, you usually have the shotgun that is breaching the door, and then you would have everybody.
Yeah, but oftentimes militarily, they use a master key, and the master key is what's used to blow the door up. It only has 2 shells. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you had somebody who was specialized with a shotgun, which isn't common except in the Navy, you might have him lead because it would make the most sense for him to lead. When you're talking about a master key that has 2 or 3 shells in it that's attached to your AR-15, it's a different scenario.
Yeah.
So my overarching point, though, is you're not disputing that within close quarters that you wouldn't prefer to have a shotgun with buckshot over an AR-15 because that's absurd.
Well, I just have used an AR-15 because I'm most comfortable with it. But then again, I haven't trained up with a shotgun. But I'd have to, I'll concede that point real quick. So
right. And that was my overarching point with that as well. So I just wanted to clear the air on that. You can get back to the comments now.
Okay.
Most of the comments were about
Yeah.
the effectiveness of shotguns.
But there are 20-round drums for shotguns that hold 2 3/4, and I believe they hold 3-inch shells. So
yeah,
again, you're at a 20-round drum. That Panzer makes it.
I seriously,
that?
How hard is it to get one of those as a civilian though? I seriously don't know.
Well, easy.
Just go to the
order
gun
one
store.
tomorrow.
Just go to the gun store and
one.
get it.
There's no
seriously
FFL or NFA. No, I know, and I'm just trying to, because again, it's like a 30-06. Everybody knows what a 30-06 is, and if you hold that up to a 223 or 556, it's a big difference.
Annette.
I don't know.
Sorry. No, Annette had a question for Todd. She wanted to know. She wanted to know what your stance was on the death penalty.
Oh yeah, I answered that. Again, like I said, I think I changed. Yeah. Like I said, 35-year-old me used to be totally pro death penalty, and like I said, now when we see so many mistakes being made with it, and again, I also wasn't pro-life back then, so I became pro-life. So again, if I'm going to be pro-life, then I have to be pro-life. So again, but that's, like I said, that's a relative probably over the last 10-year progression that I've made from 35-year-old me to 45-year-old me. So
I see it, Justin. So the question is, does Alex believe people should be limited on the amount of weapons owned for a law-abiding citizen? Absolutely not. You should be able to own whatever weapons you can as long as you pass.
All right, buddy.
So
what about the AR-15?
Sure. I own an AR-15.
Should you be able to have an unlimited amount of them?
No.
What about background checks? Should you have to have one of those?
Yes.
On every single purchase, even if your dad gives it to you?
Sure. Well, if your dad gives it to you, you can't do a background check like that. But I think, like, if you're going to go purchase one, yes, you have to background check. If I have to have a background check, everybody should have a background check. I'm a firm believer in that.
But you don't have to have a background check if you're doing a private sale.
Yeah.
You should.
I think there should, like when it comes to like personal sales between one person to another, it's very difficult to do a background check on, but that's usually like, hey, I know you, you're a good guy. Here, let me give this to you real quick. But
should we have expanded background checks?
Clarifying expanded background checks.
A federal registry for guns.
Like, for example, you should register your firearms.
Yes.
I don't necessarily agree with it, and I know that's one of Joe Biden's positions.
What do you mean necessarily? Do you agree with it or don't you agree with it? No? No. Why not? Do you think it'll prevent gun crime?
Of course not.
Of course not. So Joe Biden's position is heavy on gun control, especially on AR-15s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you still think it was consistent to vote for him, even though your specific stance is that what he's going to do isn't actually going to limit gun crime?
It's not going to limit gun crime.
Come on, man, that's a stretch.
I'm not a one-issue voter. That's the thing.
That's what he said, though, right?
You don't have to put every policy.
It's worthless. It's not going to do anything.
It's never going to happen because he's got a 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court. It's never going to fly. So,
no, it can't. It can fly. The Supreme Court can just recuse itself, and at the state level, it can fly too. The states can just say we're following federal law. The ATF can arbitrarily make up law as it goes,
and states can do whatever they want to, right?
No, they can't. They can't do anything that they want against the U.S. Constitution. And the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So the states can't go against that.
Well, the state of California has some pretty strict gun laws and seems to be working here.
And they've been challenged many times. And the
Well,
U.S. Supreme Court, to my knowledge, the U.S. Supreme Court hasn't taken them up. But at the state level, their Supreme Court strikes a lot of them down. In D.C., when the Supreme Court took it up, they said, no fucking way. You can't limit handguns to people because of that infringement.
well,
Can I ask-
we're not even trying. Sorry, we're not. In California, we don't limit handguns to people.
Yes, you do. You limit them via background checks, and you can only get one every 30 days.
Oh, I mean, like I thought you meant the number of handguns, or
Well, that is limiting the number of handguns.
no.
Well, yeah, if you can only buy one a month, then you're limited.
So are you against background checks?
Yes, totally
Why?
and completely. Because
Why?
they're absurd and they save no lives and they do nothing. And we've only had them for 20 years. So what's the point? We've seen now that they don't do anything. The Brady bill is what gave us background checks from federally licensed dealers. Okay.
So somebody that actually has been convicted of domestic violence, for example, they should be able to purchase a firearm.
Sure.
Why?
You can let them purchase a firearm. Does having a domestic battery in your background from 15 years ago, should that strike you from having a firearm?
Oh yeah.
Of course
We-
not.
We allow sex offenders to stay away 500 meters from a school, don't we?
Yeah, but they don't have a right to fuck children. You have a right to own a gun.
We're talking about
to kill people with it.
we don't have a right to rape
And
people.
nobody said that you would still be prosecuted if you killed somebody with it.
Okay,
see
but
how that works?
Because murder is against the law.
but
Murder
being,
is
but being a predator being by a school doesn't necessarily mean they're going to act on that.
No,
But
it doesn't.
you're putting
That
that
don't mean the guy who has a gun
They
can
don't-
shoot his
they
wife.
They don't have a fundamental right to be around children.
and
They
nobody
do
says
have
they
a
do it.
fundamental right to own a gun with no infringements.
I'm a firm believer that once you commit domestic violence, you have a history of violence. You should not own a firearm, honestly.
Okay, and how is that not an infringement?
Well, because you gave up that right when you conducted.
You can't give up a right, or it's not a right.
I'm
Well, you
still
go to
waiting.
prison, right?
I'm still waiting for
correct.
you to offer a solution though. Like we did this for a long time and you never
How many
gave
times do I have to tell you that not every problem needs a solution to it?
That's
And
just-
nor is there a solution for every problem.
Not
Some
every problem
problems
needs a
are-
solution.
Some problems are part of the human condition, and there's nothing you can do about them.
Andrew,
Of course you can.
it.
Of course you can.
No, if you're going to give,
that's crap.
you can't offer a solution to limiting a person's right while at the same time saying the rights can't be infringed. The two things don't go together. Okay, so either you have a right that can be infringed, or you don't have a right that can be infringed.
Andrew, I want to ask you a question really quick because you asked Alex a question because he it was something along the lines of like, why did you vote for Biden? Because he wants to control the guns. So let me ask you a theoretical question. There's two candidates. One candidate is going to allow you to keep your guns. The other can't, but he's also against a lot of your religious ideologies. The other candidate is going to take away your guns, but he's for all your religious ideologies.
I would absolutely vote for the guy who would give me the guns, even if it was a
Okay.
Democrat or a far left communist. I would still vote for that guy because there's at least recourse.
Is that your
There's
number
at
one issue?
There's at least recourse. If
Is
the
that-
population is armed, there's recourse.
Is that your number one issue?
No, it's not my number one issue. But in
What
that
i-
scenario, I just told him what I would do.
Okay, but what is your number one issue?
I already told you. My number one issue is the nuclear family in the United States and the importance that it has in the bearing with how society as a whole tends to operate.
Mine's guns, because the only reason they'd want to take your guns away if they were going to do some fuck shit that would get them shot. So again, I would continue to say that. And again, I just bought.
Australia.
I don't care about what. Again,
And
shall
in
not
Australia,
be infringed.
where what baseball crime or baseball bat crimes increased by 200%, knife crimes increased by
Stabbings in
100%.
Europe.
What?
Okay,
It's so
so
funny.
imagine if those
And then-
people had guns, how many more people would have died?
Oh, like in
That's- well,
Chicago.
so we can statistically look at that, and when we statistically look at that, we find
Crazy.
that those things increased after the gun ban, and before the gun ban, they were very limited because people could defend themselves. Look at this, Brittany. Look, every guy here is stronger than you are fundamentally. Okay, they just are. They're physically stronger than you. The only equalizer you have is a gun, and you literally want to strip yourself of that, which
No, that's
which
not
to me
what
is
it is.
retarded. I don't even understand it.
But that's not what I want to do at all. Like, I don't think regulation is the same thing as confiscation. And you guys jump to that so that we never have this conversation. But that's not what we're trying to do. There's no way you could ever.
No, Joe Biden literally is.
There's no way you could ever ban guns. Not even Joe Biden is trying to ban guns. Even going for a particular gun doesn't mean you're banning guns. You would still have your right to protect yourself. You would still be able to have guns.
And you might have a good point.
Favorite gun
you might have a good point if we didn't know that the slippery slope absolutely exists and have now seen it in real time for 20 years.
No. We had it. We had the assault weapon ban, and
we got rid of it
you
because
got
it
your
didn't work.
you got your guns back. That was your slippery slope. You got it
and it
freaking
didn't work. Right,
no, the
because
slippery slope is when you take, that was one of the few exceptions that people resisted. But generally on the slippery slope, you go from gays just want to be married to, hey, a boy can be a girl. And don't tell me that's not a slippery slope, because I watched it unfold over a 20-year span in real time. It is a slippery slope. Don't tell me you just want to ban one gun, because we've seen you. You don't want to ban one gun.
You're right. We don't.
California, you've told me you want a California gun ban.
I think I do. I want California's gun laws on the federal level.
Right. So you want to ban thousands of guns.
No, I think there's like a list. It's like 205 guns.
205 models, but you want to ban tens of thousands of guns.
I would be good with just banning certain bullets and the attachments.
So millions of bullets and tens of thousands of guns.
Let's do it.
Cared about life.
So don't tell me you don't want to ban. See what I mean? We can literally
I want to ban. Yeah, I want to ban.
Watch your logic of the slippery slope unfold in front of us with two.
No, because you guys aren't compromising on anything else. So I'm looking for other avenues to make this happen.
Yeah, but so what? We still can see the slippery slope happen in real time. And the slippery slope in real time is we're not trying to ban all guns, just these 205 models. And then these billions of rounds that exist in the general public, all of those, but no more, unless, of course, Brittany, right, a mass shooting happens with a different one, then you'll want to ban that one too.
We're not expecting that to solve it completely. We know that. There's so many guns on the street that it would never be able to do that, but we can.
So not all problems have solutions then?
No, they do. Just because you can't completely eliminate something doesn't mean you can't get it under control.
Hey, bro, the silver's staying home, bro. The good thing is the coin ain't going nowhere, bro. The chip is staying at in Michigan, brother. That's the good news about tonight. Anyway,
well, I'm just saying.
No, right? I know.
There are a couple of deviations I will concede that Alex has deviated on that are more moderate positions, and I'll accept that. But I still don't concede overall. I think that even if he is a moderate, he's generally a left-leaning moderate. And we can see that in the social issues and even on the gun issues, where he does want a background check for almost everybody who buys a gun. Now, Alex, can you tell us how the background check is going to save anybody's life?
I'm not saying it would save anybody's life.
Then why do you want it?
Why should we get a background check for anything else? Especially if you're
no, don't answer a question with a question. I don't do that to you. So tell me again.
All the time.
I'll answer the question and then I'll follow up, but I answer the question.
Okay. So you're wondering, why do I want a background check for anybody else? Because there's no harm.
No, I'm not. You said you don't think that they'll work. So why is it that you want it if you don't think they'll work?
Because I consider a gun simply a tool. It's a right, yes, but it's simply a tool that you have to purchase. It has the power to kill people, and
you don't have to purchase it. You don't have to purchase it.
So you don't want a background check?
No, you don't have to purchase it.
Why not?
Because it's not a thing. You can make them. You don't need to purchase them.
Well, I don't have the skills to make them. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but other people have the skills to make them.
Okay. How do I know that it's going to work?
Who cares if it doesn't work?
What do you mean, who cares?
It blows the person up who's shooting it. It doesn't hurt you.
Well, it does hurt me if I'm the one getting it from them.
No, I'm not talking about a person building it to distribute it. I'm saying people can build them for themselves.
3D printers.
There's laws on the books right now that are average Joe. They can't build a rifle and then sell it. It has to be serialized. Okay, it has to be serialized. Mm-hmm. Now, you might be able to make a case that might save some lives, but chiefly the person buying the gun, not necessarily who they would kill with it. But to your point, if the background check doesn't work and you don't think they'll work, what the fuck is the point in having one?
Well, I do think it'll work.
Yeah, I know, but I'm asking Alex.
Well, when it comes down to having a background check, at least then we know, like, for example, this person's not a dangerous criminal purchasing this firearm. That's the only way I look at it. I look at it somewhat as a deterrent. Is it a 100% foolproof solution? Of course not. Of course, there's a lot of things that are not foolproof solutions, but, you know, we're following through with them anyway, honestly.
So you do think they work then?
I don't know.
Why do you need a prescription for medicine?
Well, I don't necessarily think that you should have a prescription for medicine.
But why do you need one?
Well, you need one because it's a matter of law, but you don't have a right to medicine. You do have a right to guns. There's no background check required for you to get K-Flex, by the way.
And I think that's been manipulated, though, the way the Second Amendment has been interpreted.
Yeah, it's been totally manipulated. Like when they said that the right of the shall not be infringed, it's crazy. It's like they meant that you could have guns.
Yeah, if
Because
you're in a
that's what
freaking
they meant.
militia.
Shall not be infringed. It's funny.
So what's the
If
militia?
you're in a militia.
What's the militia?
The militia consists of average military-aged people that will stand against tyranny at any given time. That's what a militia consists of.
And what's the Dick Act say a militia is?
I don't know. I don't read the Dick Acts. I haven't seen
Okay,
it.
well, the Dick Act clarified an unregulated versus a regulated militia. So I was in the National Guard. I was in the Army National Guard. That's an unregulated militia.
Yeah, well,
Sorry, that's a regulated
I was
militia.
about to say, I was like,
An unregulated militia would be what you would consider the rabble who go down to the Michigan State Capitol with their rifles, okay, and have their own commanders and their own everything. That's an unregulated militia. That's already been constitutionally decided through the Dick Act.
Mhm.
Just so you know. Look at her Googling. Go ahead, Google it. Dick Act. Dick Act guns.
I wasn't Googling anything. I
We
didn't
just had a
kidding, I'm
bomb
kidding,
go
I'm
off
kidding.
this weekend in Nashville, and it's like you guys. And I can stab people. I can hit them with a hammer. I can
Yeah, you
poison
can.
them. So if I want to kill, I can drive a car into a fucking crowd. So it's funny.
What's the number one weapon of choice? I mean, let's be
I don't
real.
know. It depends. It
The
depends
number
on
one
what I
weapon
wanted
of
to
choice
do.
for mass shooters worldwide is the
Would be a
AK-47.
gun. Well,
It's a gun.
if you're using
That's
a
just
shoot,
a
well,
mass-
yeah, because it's shooting,
world, though.
Justin. A mass
Okay.
shooting
I'm not,
needs a gun.
against guns. I'm just,
You are though.
just
You
saying.
kind of
I'm
are.
not.
You kind of are.
Well-
When it came to AR-15s, you kind of are.
I
You
believe
said it. You don't
certain
think
guns-
everybody should have one.
with
However,
certain
So
guns,
you're
yeah, you
against
should
guns,
be limited.
right? So you're
Well, to be
against
fair,
guns.
I remember you said that you talk about the car bit, right, Todd? If you use a car to kill somebody, and once you get out of prison, you're probably never going to get your license. But then again, you don't have a right; it's a privilege to drive. So.
Correct, and I can still hop in another car and kill more people after I
I
get out of prison.
I
in
don't
20
think it
years.
is a privilege to drive. I think that that's a fundamental right. Your right to travel exists inside the Constitution between state borders. It does exist.
Oh,
know,
here we go. Sovereign citizen talk.
I've said this before. I want people to go and have to train with people like Andrew, who he's NRA certified. I want them to have to meet with Andrew, go to a certain amount of classes. He can determine, okay, what kind of questions is this person asking when not with all guns, not
You
all
trust
guns.
me to
not all
determine?
guns. Before
I don't
you
want
stop
him
me.
determining anything. I'm sorry.
Right.
No thanks.
So,
in a certified manner. Like you got to sign off on all these things just for certain guns, not all guns, and then you can have as many as you want once you have that license.
so
It
my friend,
includes a background check. It includes meeting with somebody that actually knows about these guns and can train somebody. And if you were in the Army or you're ex cop or ex military, okay, then maybe you can get some sort of waiver because you've gone through training with it.
Mhm.
But for the everyday citizen, how do we know who's actually handling these weapons and they know what they're doing? They understand the power of that weapon.
See, I don't think it's about whether they know how to shoot a gun. I think it's their mental health, that is what you need to be paying attention to.
That's a brilliant point, and she's
Okay.
absolutely right. It
But-
is about the
but
mental health.
yeah, but it's both, and so I think that's something that I don't care about the fucking HIPAA or whatever it is. I think it's something that should absolutely come up in a background check. If somebody has any kind of mental health issues in their past, that it should come up. I'm sorry, but if you're getting a gun that you can do things like that, you should have a lot more vetting, and that shouldn't apply.
Then you're giving the federal government
I don't care.
your
What about-
your medical
don't care.
information.
I don't
What about
care.
the
It
rarity?
doesn't matter anyway.
What about acknowledging the rarity of mass shootings, that they are extraordinarily rare? Extraordinarily rare.
Yeah, but they're
Hey.
increasing.
No,
Well,
but
when
they're
was the
still,
last
even if they
one?
increase 20-fold, they're still going to be extraordinarily rare.
But they're still
So
increasing.
When was the last
Even
one?
if they increase 20-fold, 20 times where they are right now, that would still make it an extraordinarily rare event.
Well, I
So
just
the
still don't want
question-
those events.
The
Yeah.
question becomes acknowledging that they're a rare event. Do you want to take the rights away from everybody else
Yes.
for having yes.
Yes.
And that's all we needed to hear. Yes.
No, I
You
want
wanna
to
the
take
rights-
those
you want to
specific
take the
guns
rights away from people.
because this law has been completely abused. The freedom has been abused, and I wouldn't care what kind of guns anybody had if this wasn't happening.
You can't
But
abuse the right and you can't abuse freedom.
Yes, you can.
No, you
So if
can't.
you have any mental health issue, you can't get a gun. And
Pardon me?
like, and you're in this scenario.
Okay. What was
Because
the
I think what is it, like 60 or 70% of America has a mental health issue?
okay, but we're not talking about any kind of mental health issues. We're talking about ones that you could end up doing harm to people.
Like,
There are,
like homosexuality, would that
Oh,
used to be
stop.
classified?
Okay, so
Well,
tell
wait,
me
but
how
that was classified as a mental health issue for how
no,
long?
No. Talking about mental health issues that make you dangerous, though.
So
to
only
other
the mental
people
health issues that you agree are dangerous mental health issues.
that make you dangerous
So,
to other
right.
people.
Here's the problem, though, with your theory. Psychopaths don't know that they're crazy.
No, they don't.
They think
But
there's
then
nothing
we're not
wrong with
asking
them.
them
The
to
HIPAA
determine
law
it.
wouldn't stop them from
Yeah,
going.
well,
We're
I mean,
not asking the psychopath to determine if they're crazy, though. We're asking somebody, a professional, to determine this.
and you think if a professional could determine who was a psychopath, there wouldn't be any psychopaths.
Well, I think that they could determine if maybe this person could be a risk. They may not be able to act on.
But the problem is that you would determine a man like me as a risk, and who am I a risk to? I've never hurt anybody.
And they sure
And I'm
would
not going
determine
to.
you as a risk.
So,
So, but you would
Sure
determine
would.
me as a risk. You would determine me as a risk simply because I'm
Oh, yeah.
ideologically opposed to you.
No,
So-
I just.
Yes, you would. Don't lie.
Oh,
You just said it. You just said it 5 minutes ago.
if I could real quick. So
None of us would have guns, really.
so
Oh, getting your guns taken away.
So Big Sarge over here made a very good point. You can blow up an RV and have more casualties. Guns are not the problem, and I agree with him on that. The problem is like we always talk about what the problem is. Everybody is blamed, like TV, video games. People blame mental health issues. The overarching problem is just a lack of values within the society. Right there is we don't value one another as society. Nowadays, people are just so quick to go out, get a gun, and just think that's going to solve all their problems right there. And yes, they are. Just a small part of the problem, but it's values that we're lacking within this society. We don't value one another in this society. We can all agree to that, couldn't we?
No, we can't agree to that. We used to have honor society that would challenge each other to duels. They would challenge each other to duels and shoot at each other. And it
we
was
don't do
totally
that.
legal. It was totally legal.
Well, it was legal.
As a
but-
matter of honor, it was totally legal. You're concerned that
You,
somebody-
sir, I challenge to a duel.
Yeah,
Well,
when
my-
you get a slap across the face with a glove, and it was a real thing, and it happened all the
High
time.
noon.
But my point
So what
is
the hell are you
that-
talking about?
What am I talking about? I'm talking
Bring
about
it
like
back.
we don't treat people like, for example, this whole value of like treating people that you want to be treated, not necessarily as kumbaya bit, but it's just like we're not teaching people like proper morals and ethics and stuff like
Well,
that.
where's the recourse? Where's the recourse? If you
Yeah.
treat me immorally, I can't challenge you to a duel. And in order to challenge you to a duel, I need a gun or a sword, right?
But we're not talking about that though.
No, I am talking
you're
about
twisting
that.
the point once again, Andrew.
Well,
You're
no, I'm
twisting-
not. I'm
twisting
going
the-
right into your point. You think
No.
that the value structure is the problem. What I'm telling you is there's no enforcement for values
Well, there
because
isn't.
there's
That's the
no
problem.
recourse for
No.
values in a lawful society.
That was going to be my point, but you decide to talk about dueling and shit like that. Something fucking crazy.
Because it's relevant. It's
It's not
relevant.
relevant.
It is relevant.
It's not relevant, dude.
Okay, well then what's the recourse for honor in our society then?
There really
Yeah,
isn't.
did
one.
you look
Right.
at my wife?
Right.
Let's go have a duel.
Yeah. Let's have a duel.
Let's have a
Bring
duel.
dueling back. I'm
Well,
going to
I
make
can
a
break
talking
my
sticker
wife.
like the Simpsons.
What I'm talking about, like, is just like how we treat people just like on the side of the road or something like that. Or for example, like just how we treat people with mental issues, or how some people like a lot of the one thing we haven't taken into account, the amount of death with firearms is suicide. Suicide makes up a good portion of the deaths, but people don't want to address that. But there's usually a lot of mental issues that
Yeah,
go
but
into
what
it.
race? What race are they?
Huh?
What race are the people who
I-
commit suicide with the guns?
I think it's predominantly Caucasian people.
Yes, it's predominantly Caucasian. And yet there's more gun deaths, or at least it's a 50-50 split between blacks and whites, even though they're 14%, and they don't commit suicide with gun. You don't think there's something to be talked about there?
Well, of course I do. I'm trying to make that point. But what I'm trying to say is we're not addressing the mental health issue because we always created this stigma that people that have issues are weak or something like that, and they can't get the help they need. So their only way out is to commit suicide, which is an unfortunate thing. Those are the kinds of values I'm talking about bringing back within the society, is taking care of those people to get the help that they need. Right.
I'm going to go dark on you guys.
So how are you
but
going to
I
enforce
think
it?
that there should be assisted suicide. If
How are you
wanna-
gonna?
How do you enforce those values? In a lawful society, you can't enforce values. You can only enforce law. So how do you enforce values?
I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying you can educate in values and
Yeah,
whatnot.
well, we educate in values now.
No, we don't.
Of course we do.
You are dude. You cannot be serious. We try to, but it's not across the whole entire
Are you
nation.
saying that your parents didn't educate you in values then?
That's just one example right there. Dude.
Well, that's all the examples because we all have parents, man.
We do all have parents. No shit, Sherlock. But I'm talking about the entire country.
So your values, which were derived from you for your parents, which you have, and theirs came from the Christian religion.
Are different from that.
The values that you have were derived to you from your parents. But what's your recourse if somebody's a valueless fuck and you can't get recourse in the courts? Can you challenge them to a duel? No.
Of course not.
No. But why? There's nothing. I mean, it was the age of enlightenment. The age of enlightenment was not what did away with dueling. They still dueled then. They still dueled in the 17th and 18th centuries.
Didn't
and they
one of our presidents,
you know what I mean? Why is it when you talk about morality, and progressives do this a lot, okay? They talk about morality as we just need to educate people. It's like, no, people are educated.
Andrew,
They're educated in the morality that they decide to follow.
Andrew, I think I might actually agree with you on the duels.
No, just like
If two parties agree that they're going to have a duel, and the consequence, if they both agree to the consequences of said duel, let them fucking duel.
And let me bring this back too to let you understand that in duels, people didn't usually die. Okay, the principle of the duel was to shoot as close to their feet as you could, to basically make the other guy chicken out. It was a big game of chicken. That was what the purpose of the honor system was.
Yeah, but you're not doing that.
Yeah, I would do that.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I would do that.
You're too good of a. No, I'm not buying it.
Okay, well then, Alex, as a matter of honor, I challenge you to a duel.
Okay. Let me get right on that.
BB guns.
Pick the weapon.
A BB gun. We just got a bunch of BB guns.
Has to be a black powder, but pick the weapon.
Paintball guns.
Huh?
Yeah, people.
Yeah, it has to be a black powder.
Howitzer.
Okay, well that's a black powder shell, but it still uses a primer. So
What does that mean, black powder?
it still uses a primer.
What does that mean, black powder?
Black powder and
It's
smokeless
like black
powder.
power. but
Two
only
different derivatives. Most of our modern artillery still runs on black powder, including on naval vessels. Technology hasn't changed that much in 300 years, as I've explained to you many times, and you don't believe me, but it really hasn't. The elongation of the guns have changed and the rifling has changed, but technology and riflemanship hasn't changed very much. He's saying that I challenge you to a black powder duel. I'll use a howitzer because the shell uses black powder. But it also uses a primer and it also has a shell. So, I mean, that's not a real black powder weapon, but it was a pretty good counter.
I would do it where you have to load it up.
Yeah, that would actually take me a while. So,
right. Well, my point is though, is that the principle is honor. The principle is honor. Even if you were to challenge a person to a boxing match, I think that would be fair.
Oh, I ain't winning that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Challenge them to a boxing match or something like that. Just if you can get to a point where you can get honor back into the society, I think society will be better. I don't think that values without enforcement mean anything.
I want to answer this really quick from Robert about who would determine the mental health. For me, I think one idea would be to have a committee that's maybe either appointed by both Republicans and Democrats of doctors that you can determine if you want to fight it or something. I mean, there's ways to do it, but it would have to be some kind of bipartisan.
A committee?
Yeah.
Committee?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What could go wrong?
What?
Yeah,
Why?
Well, you don't want us to have
both
guns.
sides, both sides appointing people.
Because not all Republicans are pro-gun.
Making a decision for you. I'm sorry, I can't go for that.
And you get some anti-gun sycophant who wants to just take guns from people. Well, you're on that committee, Brittany. You're going to want to take everybody's gun. What if you're on that committee? What if they nominate you out of California?
Well, and I'm talking about people like who are like trained mental health experts, though. Like that would be what the committee would be.
So how long is this interview process?
Right. And aren't they mostly leftists anyway?
Well, let me ask another question to bring it back to the debate topic. Where are you at with the institution of marriage, Alex? You say that monogamy, right? I remember you saying that monogamy is a promise.
Mm-hmm.
Should there be enforcement to that promise?
You talk about like just like between myself and my wife or something like that?
No, I'm saying should there be state enforcement to the promise?
That's only marriage between one man and one woman. Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm not. I'm saying if you make a promise of monogamy,
mm-hmm.
which is you said that you absolutely find cheating to be abhorrent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then when I asked you why, you said because you made a promise for monogamy, and when you make a promise for monogamy, breaking the promise is essentially abhorrent. Correct? Should there be any state enforcement to that?
No, you just get divorced. It's pretty simple, actually.
Okay, but you get divorced. Who gets what?
Well, usually 9 times out of 10, usually the woman gets everything.
Yeah, but that's all state enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking you about state enforcement. Should there be state enforcement to say if one person cheated on the other that there should be recourse against them?
Sure.
You think so?
I think so. I think so.
Just wanted to clarify that.
No, I think that if you're the one that committed the egregious act, like for example, if you're the one that cheated, I think you're the one that should have to pay the other person, honestly.
Don't they have laws like that right now? Like where if you
in some states,
it's no fault. It's
Georgia
no fault. Worldwide or in the United States, it's no fault divorce.
really?
Georgia definitely has that law.
It's no fault.
Trust me.
Well, I actually want to answer Big Sarge's question as far as like who will be the determining factor on mental health for guns. That's first of all, I don't think something like that's ever going to happen. However, that's something that would, honestly, I don't think that's something that would ever actually take place, to be perfectly honest. But like, however, if it is determined that this person is not of sound mind to operate a firearm, then obviously it should just come up like as a red flag without giving away any personal information. And if they want to dispute that, they should have the ability to do so, to prove that they are of sound mind to do so. That's
have to sign off.
That's something.
So how would they determine that they're not of sound mind without personal information?
Well, it just would come up as a red flag.
Okay. Well, within the 4473 right now, it comes up as a red flag.
I'm sorry?
Within the 4473 scheme we have right now, the form 4473 that you filled out when you went to the gun dealer to buy your AR-15, if the FBI red flags you, if you have mental health issues right this second, then has that done anything to mitigate this issue?
Well, then you can't purchase the firearm, right?
That's correct. You can't purchase a firearm, and you're not able to but that's right this second, and has it mitigated the issue?
Well, you can't legally buy the firearm. That doesn't mean I can't go out into the street and get it from, Joe Blow, right?
Right. So it doesn't mitigate the problem of the mass shootings, is my point.
Well, yeah, that's completely fair because there have been. I can still hear an echo. I'm sorry, it's distracting, but it's a completely fair point. However, I'm looking at the case as far as like Parkland Heights. I think it was the shooting down in Florida. Apparently, this guy was a real problem right there, and the FBI was already checking about it, but they just chose not to enforce upon that. Do you think that maybe if he went and purchased the firearm legally and he was unable to, do you think that probably could have mitigated that or not?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it because black markets exist anyway. If you want to get a gun in a country that has now the official estimate is somewhere around 330 million. I would put the estimate at more like, I don't know, 500-600 million. We have no idea how many serialized guns are in the United States, and I don't think most people can fathom the amount, and very few of them are used for dishonest or horrid purposes.
I have a question. You might know this answer because I remember, I think it was like a year or two ago, where this guy who was trying to print 3D guns and I think he went to a court. Oh, do you know about what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What happened there exactly? Did he go to the Supreme Court?
He's absolutely able to retain the technology now.
Yeah, I remember he was.
3D print the gun.
Yeah.
And there's no issue with that. An AR-15 uses a plastic lower. Now you can make them out of aluminum. You can't make them out of steel because of the pressure. But if you use a plastic or a poly lower, you're fine. The problem with those guns were that the type of resin they were making, within a few shots, they would explode.
I think they were like the guy was like giving like
He was
how
giving
to,
the schematics out for free and telling you where you can go out and buy the
how
3D
to make
printers
it.
to make the lowers. But anybody with a sheet of aluminum and a CNC machine can do the exact same thing.
Right. Okay.
And there will be much stronger lowers. Now you got to remember the ATF considers the lower to be the gun. The receiver's the gun. On a revolver, it's a frame. On a semi-automatic pistol, it's the frame. Those are what's considered the gun. The rest of the components are just parts. They don't mean anything. So people are always trying to figure out better ways that they can create the actual thing that's considered the gun, which is the frame or the lower or the receiver.
Or the bullets.
Yep.
Bullet's not the gun. And
No, I know.
By the way,
Chris Rock
fabricating projectiles for even modern weapons with smokeless powder is not difficult. Smokeless powder firearms will take black powder. You can make black powder in your backyard. Okay, make it in your backyard without a problem. Casting shells, you're never going to have a problem with either. And putting lead bullets in there, in an AR-15, they might disintegrate, but in most weapons, they'll keep together fairly well. So you're not going to be able to mitigate this problem by taking away the ammunition. People find ways, man. They find ways. And there's more people out there who are way smarter than you fucking think.
That's a lot of hoops to jump through, though.
It's not that many hoops. Reloaders do it right now. They do it right now. Right now, there's an ammunition shortage, and people are doing it.
Yeah. Well, I would still like people to have to jump through all those hoops to be able to do it, rather than handing them all this shit.
Of course you would.
Well, I know.
Yes, I would.
Infringe the right.
And over the
We get that you want to infringe the right, but what I'm saying is that I doubt that it'll mitigate it. And I think that with regular household cleaners, you can make a more effective way to commit the demise of multiple people than you can with a simple handheld weapon.
Yeah.
And that seems to be proven time and time and time again that people who are
just ban bleach and ammonia.
Like Alex was in the Army, he can tell you this for sure. It's much easier to make a large explosion than it is a small, concise one.
Yeah,
much easier. So the thing is that, to your point there, Brittany, if you want to blow something up and you don't care about the casualty rating, go big or go home. And that's what these people will start taking the mentality of. You're not going to be able to mitigate this problem until you mitigate the mental illness issue. You're not going to be able to mitigate the mental illness issue until you stop handing out prescription drugs like they're fucking candy.
You think that the prescription drugs makes somebody a shooter?
There's a direct correlation between mass shooters and antipsychotic and antipsychotropic drugs. Yes.
I'm going to need you to send me a link about that one.
I'll send it to you.
Nick Cruz was on it. So again, we brought up.
It's well known.
It's
well known that almost every mass shooter that we have found to date
had mental health
type of antidepressant or antipsychotropic drug. And if you look at those antipsychotropic drugs, you'll find that some of the side effects say things like may induce homicidal thoughts, may make you think about killing people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you don't believe me, I was just on a pill called Chantrix to help me quit smoking. I've been smoking for years and years and years.
No, you do like a pack in this 3 hours we're on here.
Yeah. For many years, I've been smoking. Okay. And I'm trying to kick the habit. What's one of the side effects on the Chantrix?
Suicidal.
May induce homicidal thoughts.
Oh, goody. Goody.
No.
Oh, fuck.
Just quick.
I had it. So I took the Chantrix for 2 days. Not for me. Move on to a different smoking cessation aid. But the point being is
How
that
are you looking at your wife during those 2 days?
Yeah,
I'm just
with antipsychotic drugs. Okay, that seems to be the link between the mass shootings because the guns are all variant. So the problem with progressives is that they consider all guns to be the same. All guns are equal. See, they all used a gun.
No,
but that's not so.
That's not what we say at all.
So it's
not all guns are equal. Come on.
Okay, so but it's
what's the difference between a 45 caliber and a 9mm? Like
the size and the velocity.
Yeah, but if I shoot you in your shoulder with a 45 caliber versus a 9mm, which one's more likely to kill you?
Probably the 9mm.
No way, dude.
Yes way.
Wouldn't the 45 blow a hole in you?
Yes, it probably would. But the reason that we went over to the 9mm is because you have a feet per second issue. The 45 ACP is running at 800 to 900 feet per second, and the 9mm is running between 1600 and 1900 feet per second, depending on the load. So what you want to avoid when you get shot is fragmentation. If you shoot me in the shoulder and my bone goes through my heart, I'm in big fucking trouble. Sometimes a bigger hole is better. If you look at Civil War pictures, for instance, have you ever noticed that the fuckers always look like their clothes have been rifled through, the dead bodies? If you look at the Civil War pictures, do you know why that is? They were looking for gut shots. See, they could survive. And that's a, by the way, that's a 50 to 60 to 75 caliber that they were getting shot with, right? But they could survive most of those wounds unless it was in the gut. So their clothes always looked like they were rifled because they were always looking all over their body, especially their stomach, for where they got hit, because they knew a gut wound was probably going to be a finisher.
Okay. Well, we're about to hit the 3-hour mark, so okay. we're gonna get this off line. So
let me publicly say then, Alex, I appreciate you coming on with me.
Sure thing.
You don't get the silver coin, but somebody's going to take it. I'm telling you.
I didn't want the silver coin anyway. I would like to keep it.
Yeah, I didn't want it anyway.
Why would you want a silver 1 ounce of silver?
Yeah, we're probably going to be neighbors eventually, though, because I'm moving to Michigan shortly. So
yeah, and we're doing one tomorrow. Justin, myself, and Todd with Nick Glenn. So anybody's watching, we'll be doing that. But all right. Anybody else have anything to say?
Yeah, I just sent you that Nicholas Cruz thing.
I bet those glasses make you see better.